Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I am Sean Chapman.
And we are here to talk about stuff, lots of stuff. We've been away for 2 weeks again.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Make a fucking podcast on Labor Day.
Yeah,
that's labor. Talking's labor, right?
Yeah.
That counts.
Moreover, I was not up in Boulder that day when I normally would because that's where Sean lives and that's where I go to school. He goes to school there too.
Yes.
And then I would normally be up there.
No, I go to school in California. I just live in Boulder, Colorado.
Right. You have a private jet.
Yeah.
We make so much money from this podcast.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Just like the cash pours in. So I'm getting a PS4 and an Xbox One at the same time. You know, I'm getting them early actually because I can just pay them millions of dollars. And they just give me them.
Yes.
So I've got one right now. I'm just playing it.
Full coverage of those next week.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah. In any case, I wasn't up here for Labor Day last week. I forgot that it was going to be Labor Day 2 weeks ago on our last podcast, or else I would have told you probably not a podcast next week.
Yeah.
Because it's just easiest to do these on Mondays.
In fact, I think we directly implied that there was going to be a podcast the following week when there wasn't at all.
Yeah, we did. So. In fact, I was listening to that segment yesterday, and we did. I did.
Yeah.
In any case.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. From here on out, we should be good for weekly. You know, next week is the build-up to GTA 5. Week after that, we'll probably be talking about GTA 5.
Yeah.
Week after that, we'll probably still be talking about GTA 5.
Yeah.
And then eventually, there'll be new consoles.
Yes, eventually.
Yeah.
That'll be like a month after the point in time which you have specified. But yeah,
right.
Eventually.
Yeah. But in between there, just lots and lots of GTA 5.
Mm-hmm.
But what's on deck for this week, Sean?
Fucking, I don't remember. We made an outline. This is stuff. It's
yeah.
It's been 2 weeks. So much shit has happened.
Yeah.
And like just weird little bits of video game news here and there, mostly.
Basically, this will be a video game heavy episode for the news portion. We'll basically be going down the list. Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony.
Yep.
And big things for all three. Silly things for all three in some cases. Yeah. Just kind of weird. We'll talk about some random stuff at the beginning. At the end, for kind of, I guess, our main topic-y kind of section, I want to talk Red vs. Blue, which, as you know, the Rooster Teeth hit Machinima series, which we typically check in on at the midway point and then ending of each season. Mm-hmm. I realized we had not talked about Season 11 at all on this podcast.
Yeah,
so,
and Episode 12 is airing
tonight.
A couple of hours after this podcast is being recorded.
So we'll be talking about up through Episode 11. So if Episode 12 comes out and completely changes our opinion of everything, we'll let you know next week.
Episode 12 comes out, it's all 2D animated, it's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see, and then we're also going to talk about the video game, the indie sensation Hotline Miami.
Because it came out a year ago, but
it's came out recently on the PS3 and Vita.
Yeah.
And I played it. I just got it last week and played it. It's, pretty short. Got through it.
Yeah.
And great game. I wanted to talk about it. Not probably, it's not a 2-hour topic kind of game, but I want to talk about it because that game
it's a really good fucking game.
It's a very interesting game, too. We can talk about our favorite ways to kill people in that game.
Knife. It's just always the knife.
It's really
always
efficient.
The fucking knife.
All right.
And doors. Lots of kicking doors into people. That's how I killed people.
I like that. So what have you been up to lately? Sean, any random stuff to talk about?
I've just, school. I've been doing lots of school stuff.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean, right now I've been, I picked up, about 2 weeks ago now, Rocksmith for the Xbox 360, and then I also bought the Steam version. And for those who don't know, it's basically like I play guitar. I've been playing guitar for it's like been 8 or 9 years now. I just realized that's a long time to be playing guitar. But yeah, I've been playing guitar for like 8 or 9 years now, so I'm pretty good at it. But like with I haven't been I was in a band for a couple of years in high school, and that was kind of fun. But that takes up a huge amount of time, like trying to like work around people's schedules and stuff. And so, while it's really fun to play music in a band, it's immensely time-consuming. And so, for like the past 4 years or so of my life, I've mostly just been playing guitar, just like strumming on my acoustic guitar and having kind of fun with that. But the only kind of music you can play on an acoustic guitar is like nice, mellow, soothing, And sometimes, when you know how to play guitar and you have a kind of rough day, you want to go home and you want to just fucking shred, and you can't just shred on an acoustic guitar. So I got Rocksmith, which is kind of like if Guitar Hero was for people who actually play guitars. More or less exactly what it is, where it comes with a cable that's really fucking cool that you just basically you plug it into the USB port of the 360 or like the PS3, or you can buy a version that for the PC also, and then you plug that directly into an electric guitar, and then it basically turns your TV into an amplifier for your guitar. And then also like has a bunch of songs and stuff that you can sort of play, and it has a basically sort of like apes a Guitar Hero interface, only it's like several times like of magnitude more complicated, because you're now dealing with like 20 or so frets and 6 strings, so like each string is a different color, and so it's like red, blue, orange, green, it's like fucking purple, and it's like, oh my god, and they're all coming at you, and so it has like a fretboard.
So from now on, when people bitch about Guitar Hero on Expert being tough, you'll
it's like,
them in the face.
Fuck you piece of shit. Like, I'm actually playing guitar through my TV, and it's like, trying to that's one of my complaints about the game, is I wish it had a view for some of the songs of just like, can I just see the tablature for this song so I can just like memorize this part, and then, because it's really fun to play along with the music of like the actual song, because then it has like the drum parts, because it kind of feels like you're playing in a band, and that's one of the reasons I wanted it, because it's like, I want to actually be able to play the music and like hear all the parts of the music and have them work together. That's a really fun part of playing music, and to get an approximate experience of that, this is like a really good way to do that, because it also like modulates the sound of your electric guitar to fit the way it sounded, and there are a bunch of different options you can unlock for like, you know, distortion effects and buzz and stuff like that.
So it's a pretty powerful platform.
Yeah, it's really, really cool, and like, it's like, I wouldn't, if you're like just trying to learn how to play guitar, and like they sell a pack of this game with what is probably like a really shitty like $100 guitar or whatever, and so it's sort of like, say it's like, hey, like you can use this to learn guitar. You don't start from nothing and just pick this game up, because it's like the game loads up and it's just like, this is the E, like the low E string and the A string and the D string and the G string and the B string and the high E string. And strum them all. You know, here's some notes. Okay, now play I Can't Get No Satisfaction. It's like, okay, motherfucker, you gotta slow down. You can't just jump in there. Like, you know, like this, you can't just learn guitar from nothing. Like, it is a lot of practice and hard work to be able to actually play the guitar. So if you're like thinking of learning how to play the guitar, this would be a very helpful tool once you've got the fundamentals down. But it's like, you still need to get someone to teach you, or be very, very dedicated to learn it completely on your own, to get enough of like a handle of the guitar, I think, to be able to play well enough to be able to play this game. Because if you just start from nothing, you're going to be able to play like 1% of the notes.
Well, like
in
for
an
instance,
song.
I just, as someone who has never played a guitar, I feel like I wouldn't even know my way around holding one.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
like like I said, like the first 5 minutes of the game, like when you plug in the guitar, like it gives you the most briefest of possible tutorials on how one plays the guitar. But it's like, obviously, you know, it's like with playing the guitar, if you want to be able to play the guitar, like you have to play for like 6 months, like intensively, just to be able to strum a chord and have it not sound like shit, because it's just pure muscle memory at some point. Right. So yeah, like, but this is a really, really awesome tool. If you're someone who's adept at playing the guitar like I am, I highly recommend it. If you don't have like, you know, a situation where you can play music with other people often, this makes practicing and playing the guitar on your own really fun, really engaging. And it's also cool because it opens, a lot like Guitar Hero, it opens you up to a lot of different like songs and bands and stuff that you have never paid attention to, and then you just run into, oh, this is actually a really cool song. And just sort of
I've discovered some of my favorite bands on Rock Band or for Guitar Hero.
Yeah, so yeah, I like Rocksmith. If you...
What platform did you play it on?
I have the 360, and I bought a version on Steam, and the cable that it comes with, just like, it's a USB cable, so you can basically plug it into anything. And a new version of it is coming out this year that like also is going to have like new shit in it, but like the cable's going to work for that version too. So probably once I exhaust the songs in this, I'll probably pick that up. But
yeah, hopefully it'll probably have more stuff like what you want, a little more accessibility and
and I've seen like some trailers of Rocksmith 2014 edition, as they're calling it, and it looks like they're already like making some improvements that I've only kind of scratched the surface with all the songs in the game, and I've already seen like, you guys are not representing how to do a bend very well on your fretboard, or like sliding on the guitar. It's like, you're not like, you're indicating that I should be doing a slide, but you're not showing like the timing of it, and it looks like they're figuring out a lot of ways to make that more legible and more accurate in the really weird like view. Like, it's so weird because, you know, like, I'm so used to learning songs from either sheet music or tablature on the internet, and so it's like, now I'm learning all these new songs, and it's like, now I'm thinking about these songs in this really bizarre Guitar Hero way of like how I'm like remembering how to play it. And I almost kind of don't like that, because it's like such a weird fucking way to visualize how to play music.
Right.
It's like these sliding colored rectangles coming at me.
Because at the end of the day, playing music is as you said, it's more about muscle memory and things like that than it is about even the even a tablature or note representation system isn't the perfect way to play music.
Yeah, like you have to practice the song over and over to get the timing exactly how you want it, and sort of like to like one of the fun things about playing the guitar is being able to improvise and stuff like that. And so like one of my favorite things about the game is after you finish playing a song, like there's a good like 5 or 6 measures at the beginning of each song before like the song actually starts to make sure you're like in the right position and everything. And always like in that, like I just like fuck around and just like play random shit. But when you finish the song, it replays the song like as you played it back for you, so you can kind of listen to the like
That's pretty cool.
see your mistakes. It's cool. And then I love like every single time I get to that part, it's like it'll start being like, oh, here's where I was just like fucking around playing like Stairway to Heaven for like 2 measures at the beginning of this song, and I'm like, oh, I completely forgot I did that. It's kind of a fun, weird fucking thing they put in the game.
Well, that's awesome. That sounds like a pretty cool... Even if it's got some problems, anyone even trying to tackle that as a game?
Yeah, it is definitely, like... And especially for being, like getting... Like, now if you get Rocksmith 1, like, I think I got it for, like, $40. And, like, but even, like, if you get the new version of Rocksmith New, that I would probably just wait for that one to come out, because it looks like there's a lot of improvements that I was not... I didn't even know that version of the game was coming out until I actually played this one. But even if you're getting the version with the cable, I think it's only like $70 to $80, which is for the amount of stuff they give you, like especially just the ability to use your TV as an amplifier and getting all these pedal effects and stuff, that if you were to buy all that stuff on your own, it would end up being like thousands of dollars. Yeah. And ultimately it would be a better sound quality and be more useful because you could use it in like live performances and stuff. But for your like personal practice, the amount of stuff they allow you to do to change the sound of your electric guitar is staggering. Like, it would cost you so much money to get that stuff normally.
Is the cable just standard MIDI?
I don't know what the MIDI cable is. Like, it is a normal electric guitar jack. Like, that is, it is, if you have an electric guitar and an Xbox, you can use this.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds cool. All right, so the other kind of random stuff thing I wanted to talk about here, well, the game I've been playing... Yeah. Is less guitar oriented. It's Mass Effect 3.
There's some guitar in that soundtrack, I think, somewhere. Probably.
There's the part where you and Rex and Liara start a rock band.
Yeah, because Tolly's dad, his grocery store is going out of business, and so Tolly comes to everybody and is like, "Hey guys, we need to start a band, do this live performance."
Tolly's the lead singer.
Yeah, and luckily, Jack is, like, and you didn't know that Jack was a pop singer before she got abducted by the Cerberus Corporation. So it's a really...
They sing punk.
I mean, they added it into the DLC, like the expanded version of Mass Effect 3 later. That's what the extended ending is. That was, like, everyone's complaint was, like, there's not enough, like, garage band music at the end of this game, and they're like, okay, we'll fix it.
Yeah. Anyway, you've heard I've been playing through the trilogy, finally finishing Mass Effect, so I won't say much yet. Mass Effect 3, great game. Hopefully, in the weeks to come, I'll definitely be finished with it next week, so maybe we could devote a segment to talking about the trilogy as a whole in more spoiler depth than we have before. I know we've talked about doing that before. I know some people have mentioned interest in listening to that, so you might do that. But the really interesting video game thing that I've been playing, and Sean has actually been playing, without any communication on our part. Sean and I have not talked in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. We have not communicated at all, and somehow during those 2 weeks we both started playing Final Fantasy IV on our Vita.
Yeah. Which, that's not like as crazy a coincidence as it could be, because we both bought it like when those Final Fantasy games were on sale. So it's like, it's not like we both just randomly decided to buy and play Final Fantasy IV at the same time.
And we both like those games.
Yeah, but it was more just like, because for me, I was just like, I kind of just want to play something. And it's like, oh, well, fuck, I have Final Fantasy IV on here. I've been wanting to replay that for a long time.
It was the same thing for me. My brother was home over the weekend, and he was playing something on the TV, and I was wanting to play Mass Effect, but I couldn't, so I just pulled out my Vita, and I'd finished Hotline Miami. I had been playing a little of Dokuro, which is this game that was with PlayStation Plus. It's a kind of a platformer.
How is that? I haven't touched it yet.
It's good. I got to the end of the first world, and that boss I have no idea how to beat, so I haven't gone back to it. But so far, it's kind of a puzzle platformer. It's got really interesting graphics. I like it so far. I don't know if I wouldn't have paid for it, but as a PlayStation Plus perk, it's a good one. I'm glad I have the game. I'll play through it more later. I've heard it's actually much longer than I thought. It's like a 20-hour platformer. Geez. So, it's kind of fun. But I just started playing Final Fantasy IV because I wanted something to play, and I was kind of on an RPG kick. Yeah. And it was kind of interesting to me. I guess the specific appeal of going back and playing it right now is that I'm also taking at college a film history class, and it's silent film history right now. So we're going back and watching a lot of silent movie classics, the first movies ever made in some cases. And it's really interesting to try to put yourself in the shoes of filmmakers as they were trying to figure out how you tell a story in this medium.
Yeah.
And that's Final Fantasy IV to me, too. That is kind of the birth of storytelling, in-depth, character-based storytelling in RPGs. And I think if you can put yourself in that mindset of when Final Fantasy IV came out, and just what an in-depth, incredible story it tells with what they had at the time, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, because I've been having a similar, because I played Final Fantasy IV when it got re-released on the Game Boy Advance, whenever the fuck that was.
And I played the DS 3D remake.
So, impure 3D. I remember playing, Final Fantasy 3, or the 3D remake of Final Fantasy 3, and I didn't like the, one, I don't think I like Final Fantasy 3, but I didn't like that they remade it in 3D. But anyways, Final Fantasy 4, coming back to it now, me being so much older and sort of having played so many more video games since I originally played Final Fantasy IV, it makes me, I think, without even, trying to be I'm going to put myself into, the era of, compare it to the video games of its day. I think compared to video games, especially a lot of JRPGs now, a lot of modern JRPGs maybe should look back to Final Fantasy IV and be hey, they were doing some stuff in terms of, pacing in Final Fantasy IV that we have fucked up so bad that we need to kind of get back to what is ultimately a much more simplistic and fast-paced style of storytelling that I think is so much fucking better.
I do too. In some ways, and when I say that about movies and games, I think I want to put myself in those shoes because I think it's an interesting way to look at it. But at the same time, we've watched some Buster Keaton films, and those are as good, if not better, than any movies I've ever seen. They got storytelling, they got pace, they got humor and character building. And it's just so pure and simple and well done. And I think I agree completely with what you just said about Final Fantasy IV. You go back to it, and I guess I was expecting, it's been so long since I played a traditional old, 2D JRPG that I was and I had kind of stopped playing those at a certain point because I got tired of random battles and all this stuff. And I was expecting I wouldn't even make it that far into Final Fantasy IV, but I picked it up and I just played an hour of it solid immediately. It was just the story is so gripping right off the bat. Yeah. And I think it's paced well. I don't think so far, they don't immediately send you into a 3-hour dungeon or anything. It's really
all the dungeons are really short. You get all through any of them in an hour to 2 hours, and it's none of the characters are these walking pathetic anime cliches.
It's
what the fuck happened to Final Fantasy? Going back to Final Fantasy IV has made me almost depressed because I was this is
a different series.
Yeah, it's this is so good. What you're doing, even and because the storytelling is so sparse and it feels so epic in the traditional sense. It feels Homeric to me of we have these we have these characters that are not necessarily we don't spend hours and hours with these characters getting into dialogues and finding out what is their philosophy and their background and all this stuff about the characters. It's this is Cecil. He is this Dark Knight. He is Batman at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
Working for the Emperor. And he has Rosa, and she's in love with him, and he's probably more or less in love with her. And then he finds out, hey, the king's kind of fucking crazy, and I can't be doing this shit anymore. And it's that's all it needs to present to you. It's it presents to you the basics of what these characters are, what they represent, what they're trying to do, and they give them simple, dramatic arcs for them to work through, and then but they make it so effective in its simplicity that it really draws you in, and then it's also so fast paced with so much stuff happening constantly with meeting new characters, having new party members coming in, having characters die. That is when certain characters in Final Fantasy IV die, I'm I cared so much more about these characters than I ever gave a shit about with Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. Everyone talks about Aerith dying in Final Fantasy VII. Fuck that. Final Fantasy IV has way better death scenes, I think.
Oh, I think Final Fantasies 1 through 6 are all...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, not 2.
Yeah,
I think Final Fantasies 1, 3 through 6, I really like their style. And 1 and 3 are more they're more different. 1 and 3 are very similar in that they're sort of D&D sim kind of games. They're not story heavy.
Yeah, with very, very light stories.
But, and 4 and 6 are the significant ones. Yeah. And I have not ever finished 6. I've played the first couple hours, and I really want to get back to it someday.
Yeah, I think after I finish 4, I'm going to go and, because I've never finished 6 either, and I'm going to play it all the way through.
And 6 has the first couple hours of that are tremendous. And 4, I'm only a couple hours into it, because you probably started a little earlier than me here. But I just started it like 2 days ago. But in any case, I think everything you just said is true. I really the characterization moment that hit me in terms of how this is a different style of storytelling, but an immensely powerful one is. Who's the spellcaster, the old man you meet early on?
Tella.
Tella, yeah. You meet Tella, you find out his daughter eloped with this knight.
Edward.
Edward.
The prince
right.
of Demacian.
Yeah. And you go up to Demacian, and Anna is lying there dying, and Tella has to... And in a very short amount of time, you see Tella deal with the death of his daughter. His daughter tries to, kind of redeem herself in his eyes. They make friendly again. They kind of get through the issue with Sir Edward, and then Prince Edward, and then Tella runs off. You try to stop him, and then Edward...
Spoony Bard when he's fighting Prince Edward.
I love that scene. It's great. Final Fantasy IV also has great humor and stuff.
Yeah.
But in any case, Tella runs off, Edward joins your team, and that's like 5 minutes of gameplay, and it's spectacular.
Yeah, and they're also really, in terms of like how they use the game like interface to tell stories, I think they're really creative in using very simplistic sprite animations and stuff like that, like having characters spin around and kind of hop when they're happy, of like these very exaggerated, since the graphical representation is so simplistic, they have to be like very exaggerated and creative with how they express emotion with these like little 2D sprites. And then I love the moments like when you have Tella encountering Edward, how like Tella at first is like outraged at Edward because he blames him for his daughter's death, and so they have this like scripted fight sequence where it's like you're not involved in any way, it just goes in to the fight scene, and it's like Edward's on the left side of the screen and Tella's on the right. Dude's like throwing, like, I think he's actually like smacking him with his stick. Like, I don't think he throws spells, he's just like beating him with the staff. But it's like, I don't know, that's really a creative use of the storytelling opportunities they have at hand to be like, let's just go and show a battle scene that the player has no contribution to whatsoever, but we can use it to show this conflict between these two characters.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's the kind of thing you lose in the 3D remake, for instance, because that's probably just an animated cutscene, if I remember. Things like that.
And then it should be said that because we're both playing the PSP remake that is also available on the Vita, and that remake, which completely redoes all these sprites, it has a new English translation, and that also redoes all these spell effects. It looks fucking spectacular. It looks so fucking good.
It is one of the best looking games on the Vita, I think, even though it's a 2D top-down game. The colors are so vibrant. It's actually, we're going to talk about this a little later with the PS Vita redesign. I think it's actually a testament to the OLED screen on there, just how vivid it is. But it looks tremendous, and it sounds. Nobuo Uematsu's score.
Yeah, it's got a rearranged score with like actual, like, not actual instrumentation, but what sounds like actual instrumentation as opposed to beeps and bops.
Although you can easily switch it back if you want at any time. And either way, I think it is one of the great video game scores.
Yeah, the Uematsu work is always fantastic.
Uematsu's just a great composer, and in 4, my God, there's just some great musical moments in that game, and every time you get into a battle, it's you're just like, you're pumped! You want to fuck up these people! Or usually little weird monster things. Whatever.
Like these fucking goblins and Domakovs, whatever the fuck those are.
And, okay, you've always hated the active time battle system.
I still think it's fucking stupid. Like, I still think it should just be, like, fucking roll your priority based on, like, a stat these characters have. Because I think the vast majority of the time, all the active time battle system does is it makes me wait to input a command. Because, with Final Fantasy IV, I still think there's some impressive stuff. I'm always impressed whenever I go back to the old Final Fantasies to be like, look at stuff like, being able to cast Cure on, like, zombies or skeletons, undead enemies, and it does damage to them. Like, I always, like, they make very creative use of some, like, individual spells and stuff that you can use in unexpected ways. And that's cool, but, like, 99% of all the battles take absolutely no thought whatsoever to complete. It's just like attack, attack, attack. You use your fire staff, done. Like, so I just set it to like the setting for the cursor of like, remember where the cursor was last time I used this character, so I can just mash the X button and clear through the fights. They're not hard. They don't take a lot of strategy. Even I'm probably, I would say 70% of the way through the game right now. Like, I've gotten pretty far, and even now the battles are not particularly difficult. So all the active time battle system does to me is it's just like, I have to wait to input that command. I have to watch this fucking bar go. And it's not like it's very long, but it just makes it slower. And the other thing it does is that you can't pause during the battles. And one thing that I like for turn-based battle systems is, like, once I input a command, if I want to put it down to drink a glass of water or something for a second, I can just fucking do that.
Although on the Vita, that's not a problem, because you could just
But then it's like, I don't want to put the Vita to sleep and then bring the Vita out of sleep, because then there's also like a half-second hitch of while the game's like trying to load back up, because it's not a native Vita game. It's emulating the PSP. So it's like, I just want to, if I fucking use my attack and it's like my turn, I want to just like, sometimes I want to just get a glass of water, take a sip of water, and just be like, okay, attack that guy. Like, it's a fucking turn-based battle system. If I wanted something that required skill and like dexterity of input and stuff like that, I would play a fucking action game. If I'm playing a JRPG, I think the active time battle system is fucking stupid. I always have, opinion unchanged. It's not like it's a huge deal to me, I just think it's pointless. Like, it can just be the Final Fantasy one way and it's perfectly fine. Or like almost every single other JRPG ever made just uses you roll for initiative based on your agility stat. Like, that is like the order of turns. That's all it is. That's all it ever fucking needs to be.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any, I guess, strong feelings one way or another. I always have seen where they were going with it.
Yeah.
And I understand the purpose of it, but yeah, it does not necessarily do everything it needs to do.
Yeah, it's like, and again, like, I don't think it like makes the game terrible or something. It's more like, I just like complaining about it because it seems really stupid to me. It's not like it's terrible. It's a really small thing. I just think it's dumb and doesn't make sense.
Well, I'll say this. I think it makes more sense in the realm of Final Fantasy IV when they introduced it than when they kept holding on to it by 7.
Like 7, it's super stupid.
Yeah, in 7 it doesn't make sense, especially because 7 has much more layered on top of it with the battle system. So that kind of just holds it back in 7.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, in any case, if you've never played Final Fantasy IV and you own a PSP or Vita, that's the version to play.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. It's fucking awesome.
It is on iOS platforms and stuff now, but it's a 3D remake, and you don't want to play that with a touchscreen. That's stupid.
Why did they put the 3D remake on iOS? That seems really weird.
They did the same thing for 3.
Huh.
And, 1 and 2 are
that's
out.
Such a like, that would be a totally fine platform to play, like, the 2D versions of those games. Like, it wouldn't be the way I would ideally want to play the game, but it would be a totally fine way.
Well, like, I have Final Fantasy 1 on there, and it's the same one as the GBA version, for instance, and that's playable with the touchscreen. It's not my preferred way of playing it, but, I like having buttons. But, yeah, it's good. It looks great, for instance. That's what I'm playing portably right now.
Yeah, me too. Final Fantasy IV is fucking awesome. I hope Final Fantasy 15 is really cool, because it's like me, like, replaying this, it's just like, what the fuck happened to that franchise? It got so stupid.
I mean, really, really post-6. 1 through 6 are all the same series. After 7, that's a different series.
Yeah, it's totally...
And it's a different audience, too. I honestly think that, and I think that's why...
I mean, yeah, there's definitely, like, in the fan base, there are huge divides of, like, people who, like, see Final Fantasy VI as being the greatest game, and then there's, like, a whole new audience with, like, the PlayStation and everything thinking Final Fantasy VII is the best one.
Well, yeah, I mean, they switched...
And then now, there's a whole new emergent faction of Final Fantasy fans who are like, no, fuck you, Final Fantasy X's the best one. I'm like, no, fuck you, Final Fantasy X has Titus. Yeah. Like, when I watched because, they're remaking an HD remaster of Final Fantasy X. This is spoilers for the future of the podcast, but there's, like, they at the Vita live, or the Sony, like, Japanese press conference thing that I watched live streamed, they, like, briefly showed a scene from Final Fantasy X, and it was Titus kissing Yuna, and it was just like, the thought of someone kissing that fucking pissant, that motherfucker Titus, like, I threw up a little bit in my mouth. I'm like, oh my god. He's the most repugnant, disgusting piece of shit character. Like, I wish he was a human being so I could slap him in the face. Fuck Titus. And 10, if Titus wasn't in it, could maybe be okay. But fuck Titus.
Yeah. So anyway.
Fuck Final Fantasy. It's all terrible.
15 is at least getting back heavy into the crystals, and I always love that the crystal is the main motif in 1 through 6.
Yeah.
And in 4, it's, 4, the crystals have this emotional weight to them because you have to kill these people to get it, and then that's your emotional turmoil. Yeah. And I really will say the hook for me on 4 is Cecil. I think as a protagonist, someone with that level of emotional turmoil, and then the switch you make later in the game and become a paladin and stuff, it hits, and it hits hard.
It's one of the things I really like about the game is that, like, it's so weird because this is such an early JRPG, but it doesn't have the JRPG cliche characters where you almost feel like it should be the other way around. That it's like the earliest games would have the highest occurrence of the cliche characters, and that's why they're cliche characters. It doesn't work that way. It's like almost every single one of these characters I feel are, like, really unique. Like, the only one is, like, Sid, but he's, like, a weird recurring, like, trans-dimensional, like, something. He gets amnesia every time he goes to a different Final Fantasy universe, apparently. That fucker's in almost all of them.
I love Sid, though.
Yeah.
And I always love how they use... And I love how in some games you have to go find Sid. In 4, he's your friend at the castle.
Yeah. And sometimes you are, like, Sid is you. He's just inside you. It's like Sid is with all of us, I think.
Final Fantasy 16, you play as Sid. I'd love that.
Yeah.
You're building airships. You're going out, you're having fun with your airships. Yeah. That'd be great. All right, so enough talk about Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah.
Really good game, though. Let's talk some news, Sean.
Okay.
Let's begin. Again, we're going to just split it down the list. Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. So
and this is the order in which the news came out, because this first piece of news was like immediately after our last podcast came out.
Pretty much immediately after our last podcast, Nintendo had one of their dumb Nintendo Direct things.
Yes.
And the big news out of that was a redesign, the third redesign of the Nintendo 3DS platform, which will now be the Nintendo 2DS.
Yeah.
And I literally thought for a couple of hours that this was a joke.
Yeah, when I first saw the headline and like the screenshots, I was like, what are you doing, video game website? It's not April 1st yet.
I'll also admit,
you jumped the gun.
I'll also admit I saw this news while scrolling through Kotaku, and Kotaku is known for bullshit stories like that.
Yeah, it is.
So
I go to Kotaku.
I don't often, but I was there. That's where I saw it, and so I just didn't take it seriously. And people were tweeting about it, and I thought, yeah, it's kind of a funny joke, haha. And then later on, I found out this was real, and I couldn't this is so hard to fathom. Just because it is the ugliest piece of hardware I think I've ever seen, at least in the modern video game generation.
Yeah, it's definitely like, and I'm kind of weirdly of like two minds on how I feel of the Nintendo 2DS, because like the logical, rational part of my brain is saying this is actually probably a really smart thing that Nintendo is doing. Like, I think this device is going to sell very well. It's coming out on the same day as the new Pokemon games. It is designed for younger children. So it's like, logically, it's like, okay, yeah, like this is like super cheap, like $140 version of your 3DS that plays your DS and 3DS games that comes out on Pokemon Day for the kiddies. Like, smart move. Then it's like the non-rational part of like the emotional part of me is just like, I see it and I hear the name and I'm like, that is the stupidest motherfucking thing I think I have ever heard.
And as someone...
The fucking Nintendo 2DS. Are you shitting me? And it looks like some bullshit Fisher-Price, like, my first video game console piece of plastic shit that it's like... It's so stupid. It looks so stupid and the name's so dumb.
I've seen pictures of it, like, with a piece of wood on the back and it looks like an axe.
Yeah.
I love all the different pictures people have made. But, like, I can't even get to the point of... Like, I can see the logic of it, like you said, for kids, Pokemon Day, blah, blah, blah. But even then, I feel like every step of it is so botched, and my number one point I want to make that I have not seen enough people hammering home is that the fucking 3DS has a depth slider. Most people play it in 2D anyway. You don't need another console to play your games in 2D.
Well, I mean, I don't think they're not... I mean, okay, the name kind of weirdly implies that, but that's not what they're saying. Like, because it's like $60 cheaper, like, that's why... Because the 3DS, presumably... The 3D aspect of the 3DS presumably costs a lot of money to put into the fucking machine. Yeah. That's why they stripped it out. Which I think is another example of Nintendo proving that their bullshit gimmicks do not catch on.
Except, here's the thing. I want to make clear also, as someone who owns a 3DS and has played many of the biggest games, the 3D element, to me, is the best and most exciting element of that console as a piece of hardware. It is the one gimmick of Nintendo's post-GameCube days that I think is not a gimmick in a lot of cases. In Super Mario 3D Land, for instance... You cannot play that game without 3D. If you play that on your 2DS, you will have a very tough time because that game was made for three-dimensional gameplay. And I think a lot of the other games I've seen on there, maybe it's not essential, but for one, the graphics look exponentially better. If you play any 3DS game in 2D, it looks fuck ugly. It just does. It's super pixelated. It looks super blown out. The colors are washed out. It doesn't look right. These games are designed with 3D in mind. It's a different kind of graphical interface. And it looks good. It is the best implementation of 3D I think I've seen in movies or in games, because it is actually integrated into the storytelling, into the gameplay in a lot of these games, and that's cool. That's something where I don't... Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the 3D gimmick, but the 3DS is the one thing where I've seen on a couple of games, this is a new way of doing a gameplay, and it's an interesting way of doing it. And I think there are some games that you absolutely need it for, like I already mentioned Super Mario 3D Land. And again, the whole thing about the graphics just look worse with it off. They just do. Animal Crossing 3D, whatever that game's called, Animal Crossing New Leaf, for instance, that's a gorgeous game in 3D. There's just such richness to the colors. The textures are really nice on it. And then if you turn it to 2D, everything looks kind of jagged. It kind of looks compressed. Maybe the 2DS will have an advantage of, maybe they'll be able to render it in such a way where that's not the case. I don't know. But I understand why Nintendo is kind of going on this track where they're deprioritizing the 3D, because 3D was a fad when they made the 3DS. It is no longer a fad in the United States or Japan, really. Kind of still is in some parts of Asia and Europe, but that's not their core markets.
Yeah.
And so I kind of see all that, but at the same time, it kind of disappoints me, because this is the one gimmick to me that was at some point more than a gimmick. And them backpedaling on this in this kind of way, I don't know. It disappoints me in that way, and then the system just looks dumb. I look at that system and I have no idea how you hold it. I have no intuitive sense of how that thing holds.
Like I've read articles by people who've actually been able to play on it, and they say it's it looks like it's completely unwieldy, but it's actually totally fine.
Okay,
so it's by people who played it, they say it's you can. It's not like it gives you hand cramps or something, as from what I've heard. But again, I don't own a 3DS, and it's kind of sad because I don't particularly care about platformers, so I wouldn't have probably played Super Mario 3D Land anyways. The only games on the 3DS that I kind of am interested in are Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei 4.
And Fire Emblem Awakening looks gorgeous in 3D, just gorgeous.
Yes, but and then the Ocarina of Time remake, I maybe would pick that up. So it's when I saw $140 for the device that can play DS and 3DS games, I'm like, oh, that seems kind of cool. And then I looked at it and it's I could not live with the shame of holding this thing and saying I bought a Nintendo 2DS. I couldn't do that. I couldn't go through with that.
I also want to make something else clear. This is not as big of a discount as people are making it to be. It is not $70 off. It is $70 off of the 3DS XL, but this is the same screen size as the regular 3DS. So that's the system you should be comparing it to. That is currently $170. This is $30 less. That is not a significant discount in my mind for what they've taken out. I don't think it is, and I think that's the thing people are missing, and people are only comparing it to the XL. This is not a supplement to the XL. The XL is a bigger version of the 3DS. This is an alternate version of the 3DS. It's the same screen size, just flattened out without the hinge and stuff.
Yes, and without.
And I will say also, I think it's weird that we're marketing this to children when this one is much more susceptible to damage by kids because it does not close. And those screens by kids, I can just tell you from kids I've seen playing with the 3DS, that will... my cousins always have their 3DSs and stuff, and they scratch those things up like motherfuckers, even with, they can close it. That would get destroyed in a day.
Yeah, but, it won't fuck up if they, have the 1% thing of, kids younger than 7 years old playing on 3D systems that will, fuck their heads or whatever it is.
Although, again, the 3DS...
They legally had to put that warning in there of, hey, if you're a small child, you shouldn't be using the 3D.
Yeah, and although if you're an intelligent parent, you could find the parental controls to shut 3D off on the console.
Yes, well, video games have told us that most parents are not intelligent parents, and most parents have no idea what a parental control is. So.
Yes, that's true. So I don't know. It's business-wise, I see where they're coming from, but I don't know. It just Nintendo is out of touch in so many ways, and the 2DS to me just seems like
I don't know, dude. I think it's going to sell like fucking hotcakes. I think this.
Well, anything related to the 3DS is selling like hotcakes now.
I think this one especially coming out on Pokemon Day, I think was.
Yeah, but they could have released. They could have released anything, any redesign of the Nintendo 3DS, and it would have sold like hotcakes on Pokemon Day.
Yeah, but what other are they going to release the 4DS that travels through time? Like what else? What other version of it almost seems crazy to me that they're how fucking long has the 3DS been out for? 2 years at most?
Maybe 3 at this point.
It's how do we have 3 redesigns of the fucking system already? That's what seems crazy to me.
Yeah,
it's usually you have to wait 3 to 4 years for your first redesign, and then you get your third and last redesign right when the thing is about to fucking go out the door. Like the 360 and the PS3 both just very recently got their third redesign.
Although the Game Boy Advance SP was about a year after the Game Boy Advance, and that was really the last big one. There was the Micro.
Yeah.
And...
But I don't know. There was the Micro.
At the time, you may have thought the Micro would have done better.
No!
Okay.
Nobody would have thought that. Nobody that looked at the Micro would have been like, that seems like something I would use and I would buy.
I owned a Game Boy Micro.
You are the single human being on the planet who thought that. So I don't know why you're not excited about the 2DS, because this seems a hell of a lot like a better idea to me than the Game Boy Micro ever was.
Well, that's probably true.
The Game Boy Micro, that's like fucking Virtual Boy levels of just dumb. Like, this is like...
But here's the thing.
Yeah, this is pretty stupid.
Here's the thing. The thing I'm most excited for probably in this Pokemon game is that it's got fucking 3D graphics for the first time. I assume it's going to make spectacular use of the 3D feature. On the 2DS, I
don't know, dude. Everyone else I've talked about with that, like, plays the 3DS. Nobody else gives a shit about the 3D. Like,
but how many people actually give it a chance? How many people actually play games with it on and experience it?
I think a lot of people... I don't ask that, but it's like, you know, presumably everybody gives it a shot and is like, yeah, whatever, I don't like it.
But like, again, I feel like
if you bothered to play with it off,
but at the point where you're turning it off, it looks no better at all, and in some ways worse than the original DS hardware. So at that point,
the appeal of 3DS is not the graphical capabilities of it.
I guess not, but that was the thing that made it a step up from the DS. I just, that's the point. And if they just wanted to call, I don't know, if they wanted to ditch the whole line and say now we're just making the the new Nintendo DSs, they're like this, they play all your games, whatever. But.
Yeah. Like, the one thing about the name of the 2DS that I think I love about it is that it's like, we've had a DS, and we've had a 3DS, and now we have the 2DS, which retroactively now implies that the original DS only played games in a single dimension. Because now we've got the 1DS, the one is implied, the 2DS, which plays 2D games, and the 3DS, which can play three-dimensional games. So it's like... What the fuck was the original DS? Was I playing games in the single dimension, one dimension, and I never realized it?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. It's fucking mind-blowing, dude.
Yeah. So, oh well. Still got that dumbass circle pad on there. Yeah. 2DS. Buy it if you hate yourself.
Sure.
That should be the tagline. Or I guess if you have kids. But, even then, pay the extra $30. Get the regular 3DS. It'll last longer for your kids. You can toggle the 3D off if you want. You can lock the kids out of it. If you are a parent listening to this, I stress you just get that, and you could get it used. I'm assuming for much cheaper than the 2DS. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I don't think it is as much of a price cut or anything as people are making it out to be.
Okay.
So, all right. What else? What other Nintendo news did we have?
There was a Wii U price drop that also that's. Sure, that system's been out only for a year and we're already getting a price drop, but it hasn't even been out for a year yet and we're getting a price drop.
Not as bad as the 3DS price drop,
which
though.
was like a couple of months, right? Like 3
or
or 4.
It was 3 months and it was a $70 price drop. So that's when, in fact, the 3DS went from $250 to $170. And they did this ambassador program for it, which was nice if you owned it. I owned a 3DS on day one, and I got 20 free games for that, so I felt that was a good way for them to say sorry for the price drop or whatever.
Yeah,
but
then buy this ridiculously overpriced piece of hardware.
Yeah, but then the Wii U, I actually did see a couple people were bitching about how they weren't doing an ambassador program for the Wii U, and I don't know. This seems much more fair. For one, it's not nearly as big a price drop. Mm-hmm. It's almost a full year out. And
even then, systems usually don't get price drops till 2 years to 3 years out.
No, but
that's 1 year. It's pretty not even 1 year.
Yeah,
it's 10 months.
It's also pretty obvious this had to happen.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have price dropped it, but it's definitely, I don't know. It feels again almost like a tacit admission by Nintendo. That's we don't know what we're doing. I don't know. We're lucky that people bought the 3DS now because we almost fucked that up so bad.
Yeah. They are damn lucky with the 3DS. But then also, and then the price drop will be a bundle with the Wind Waker HD.
Wind Waker HD, which the other interesting part about that with Wind Waker HD is that you will be able to download the digital version of the game 2 weeks before you can get the retail copy. Which is
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is I'm definitely expecting that's probably going to be a more common thing going forward of the digital version being available earlier than the retail version. Because if you want your hardcore audience to not buy physical media, that's the number one way to do it. Is if my options were to get a physical version of GTA 5 a week from now or have GTA 5 right now, but I have to buy the digital version, I'd buy the digital version in a heartbeat. I don't care enough about the physical thing. I fucking want to play that goddamn game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that's a cool... Nintendo doing something right is leveraging the digital marketplace in a way that nobody else really has yet. Yeah. As far as I'm aware. The only other place that could have done that is PC. Nobody buys PC retail, so...
Right. So that's kind of cool. I do wonder if Wind Waker HD will help the Wii U out at all. I'm kind of thinking no.
So. Because... I don't think an HD remake of a GameCube game that has a very passionate fan base, but, again, that when it came out, that game was not that well received. While there are a lot of people that really, really love Wind Waker, I think that there are a lot of people like me that when it came out, I was like, And like the HD version still, I would maybe try an HD version of Twilight Princess because I don't like playing Twilight Princess because it looks like shit. Wind Waker still looks totally fine. I don't need it in HD.
No,
I wanted to play Wind Waker.
Wind Waker's a gorgeous game, however you play it. And it's a self-selecting audience. That's the people who buy that are going to be the people who already played Wind Waker, and it's not the kind of numbers they need to move the Wii U. Yeah. And I don't, even the price drop, I think, I think consumers are not hugely savvy, but they're savvy enough to get that the Wii U is not a good deal.
Yeah, right, I don't think this is going to save the Wii U by any stretch of the imagination. But
and, I read an interesting report recently about how Nintendo, even if the Wii U just flops and dies spectacularly as it is right now, Nintendo will not be in trouble because they are, compared to most companies in the world, just flush with cash. They are tremendously soluble. Like they're solvent financially, and they have literally billions upon billions in cash in their bank holdings before you even get to stocks and things like that. And most companies in the world at that size, all their money is in stocks. Nintendo just has billions in cash. They can ride this one out.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's been around for hundreds of years. This is a very old Japanese company. That's video games was not the first thing that Nintendo did.
Right.
It's interesting, but the thing that might happen if the Wii U does not sell well is they might not make a Wii 3 or whatever the fuck they call it. They might not be in the home console market anymore past the Wii U. They might just be like, fuck it, we're just making the 4DS now, and you can play games
with scent.
Yeah, exactly. You get the new Pokemon, and you will be able to travel back in time through the game and trade with people playing Pokemon Red in 1993, and that's what the Nintendo 4DS does.
Yeah,
which would be fucking awesome. I'd totally buy that, a time traveling console.
That'd be pretty cool.
I'd just give myself a level 99 Charizard when I first got Pokemon Red, and destroy my brother and everyone on the playground. And it's now all of a sudden I have all this self-confidence and stuff in the present, and
you're rich in
my
the present,
whole life.
You won Pokemon tournaments and you're rich in the present.
Yeah, be awesome.
All right, so
make it, Nintendo, please. I'm desperate. I need something here.
All right, any other Nintendo news?
I think that's it.
That's the big ones. All right, let's move on to some Microsoft stuff. Xbox One, we finally got a release date.
And that they just kind of
it was the
put a video out one day.
I didn't even know there was a video until you told me about that today.
Oh yeah, no,
I never saw it.
One day there was a video.
It was just so low key. It was on. I saw it on Twitter first, and then a couple sites had it up, and it wasn't even necessarily the headline everywhere. And after that day, no one was talking about it. It was the most low key announcement ever.
Yeah, but the release date of the Xbox One is November 22nd, 2013, which for people with a long memory might remember that in 2005 on November 22nd is when the Xbox 360 launched.
And it is a Friday, which matches. It's the Friday following.
It's the week following the PlayStation 4's release in North America. Mm-hmm. But the Xbox One is releasing in all of its 2 or 13 countries that it's now releasing in after they pared all those back. It's releasing in all of them on the same day. So since the PS4 is launching in Europe, although by 10 more European countries on the 29th, the Xbox One is going to be launching in the UK and some of those key European countries on the 22nd as well. So it's a week later in the US, but it's a week before in Europe for Microsoft. So it's kind of in this weird straddling position, and is more or less exactly where I expected it to be. And for some reason, everyone, all the gaming press online is we all thought it was going to be earlier than the PS4. And it's I don't know why anybody thought that. It always felt like I always expected it to be a little bit after they PS4 announced they're going to be November 15th. I would be really surprised if it had been earlier.
We definitely talked about this 2 weeks ago because we both thought it's going to be later. And
hey, lo and behold, it's
November 22nd.
Yes,
so
one day before my birthday. So
I just
missed that weird coincidence again.
I just really don't get the strategy of how they put this out. Do you want to talk about the video?
The video is just it's 2 to 3 minutes long, and it's a really funny video to watch because it's what's his name? I think Yusuf Mehdi is one of the dudes. He was the guy who demoed all the TV features when the Xbox One was announced. And so it's one of the big Xbox spokesperson corporate peoples. He was sitting there in a chair, and opposite him was some woman that also works for Microsoft, and she was interviewing him. So it's this Microsoft employee doing this scripted interview with another Microsoft employee, and it's the most awkward, stilted, corporate fucking bullshit you've ever seen. Like, if, Microsoft was trying to appeal to, like, the hearts and minds of the people and paint themselves as not being, like, this big corporate monster like everyone rightly believes Microsoft to be. Like, Sony has been doing a great job of making them feel like we're being led by, like, people who know what people want in their video game console. We've got, like, Shuhei Yoshida out there. He's a fun, happy dude. I love Shuhei Yoshida. I'll buy a console that Shuhei Yoshida wants to buy. Like, Mark Cerny, he's a cool, calm, smart fucking guy who knows what people want in a video game console. It's like, you get this very, like, Apple, we know what the people want, we are a people's company, even if we are, like, this massive fucking corporation vibe from those guys. Then Microsoft, it's like, we are this machine. There are no people at Microsoft. There are Microsoft employees that are like cogs in the fucking the grand machine that is the Microsoft corporate structure, and we are going to tell you with happy smiles that the Xbox One is releasing on November 22nd, 2013, and the Xbox 360 launched on November 22nd, 2005. That was fun, wasn't it? It's just like, oh god, Microsoft. Oh god, what are you doing? Like, this is just so icky.
And I guess the biggest thing that confuses me about the announcement is not the date. Date seems perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I expected.
Yeah, and I don't think they're at a huge disadvantage just from the date.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Whatever. They've disadvantaged themselves in other ways.
Yeah.
Such as public image. But in any case, yeah, I just think it was confusing because, Sony made their announcement at Gamescom with a bunch of other announcements. They had this global platform.
Yeah, like this huge press conference live streamed everywhere.
So not only did that news get picked up by everyone, including big major news sites like CNN, like non-gaming sites. So it was big. It was everywhere. Everybody knew November 15th. That's the day. Yeah. And not only that, but they were able to push a lot of other news with it. So for a week there, everyone was talking about the PS4, not just because of its release date, but because they used the release date to, hitch a bunch of other good news items on. And Microsoft just kind of dumps this out there like it's like they're announcing, I don't know, a firmware update.
Yeah, they remembered YouTube existed, so fuck it, here we go.
So it's just this tiny little announcement, like it doesn't matter at all, and it's November 22nd. And again, it was a big headline, kind of, in some places. IGN had it in their hotbar at the top, but it wasn't even necessarily the first item.
Yeah.
That day, I believe they had also their GTA 5 gameplay footage out, so that was prioritized on IGN, for instance, above that. On Polygon, I don't think it was the highest item all day, even. Stuff like that. So it wasn't all that big news. It was kind of there for a couple hours, people talked about it, and then it was gone. And really,
it's weird. It's weird, especially for me, because I keep really strict track of this kind of stuff. Like, I watch all the press conferences and stuff, and so I just got up one day and I just went on the internet and it's like, oh, the Xbox One's coming out November 22nd. I'm like, what the fuck? There was no fanfare. I had absolutely no fucking clue that was going to be announced. I think they maybe hinted at something on Twitter, like we're going to put a video out later. Like, I think earlier in the day, they had hinted at in the afternoon we're going to release this video. And it's just but when I just got up on the internet, it was just there. It's like, what is this? Sony, everybody knew. Sony hinted a week out from Gamescom that, hey, we're probably going to announce our release date at Gamescom, and everyone was kind of excited. It's like, oh, what the fuck's the release date going to be? And they wait, and it's their big thing they drop at the end of the press conference, huge fucking date up on their awesome black blue screen. That's they have had the same awesome press conference setup since the PS4 reveal. That thing's really cool looking. It's okay, cool. November 15th. That's a yes, cool. It's Xbox. It's oh hey, IGN says that the Xbox One's coming out on November 22nd. Oh, there's a link to a YouTube video. Oh, that's a weird video. It's there's no fanfare, no spectacle. It's so disappointing because I was wondering when the fuck is Microsoft going to announce this news? And it's they just kind of do it.
Yeah, and I as I said before, I think it's less important, the release date and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think having that in the public mind is good if you're trying to sell these things.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Sony doesn't even necessarily need to publicize their release date so heavily because they're guaranteed to be sold out day one.
Yeah.
They've already said.
I mean, the Xbox One is going to be sold out day one.
Probably,
too.
yes,
both
too,
of these,
but they're not,
systems are going to be.
Right.
You will not be able to find them on shelves, almost for sure.
Of course, but Microsoft is still the one that you can still go pre-order an Xbox One if you want. they probably need that edge a little more, and it probably would have been good to rustle up some fervor and say November 15th, November 22nd, and then maybe if you were on a fence, some people would go pre-order or something because they know the date or whatever. And there wasn't anything there. And as I said, Sony also used their release date to pump a bunch of other news out there. Mm-hmm. So again, PS4 was on everyone's minds. Xbox One got lost in a sea of current gen information because that was also a big week for GTA 5 news.
Yeah.
So just a weird strategy. I really didn't get that.
Yeah, I have no idea why they did not announce it at Gamescom. Like, presumably there must have been something going on with like the manufacturing where they wanted to make sure they're going to have the units they needed, and that like they didn't need to push back the date any further. But this is almost about as late as they could possibly go without like interfering with Black Friday. So
yeah. So who knows? Hope it. We'll see. Kind of weird. Was there any other big Xbox news around this time?
I don't think so. I don't think anything else has really been going on. They just kind of like said, yeah, that's when we're coming out. And been silent since.
Yep. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, Sony is taking the stage again, though, as we're transitioning in here. Yep. This was last night, kind of had their...
Today.
Okay.
At the very, 4-hour time zone, literally, as early as you possibly could be, starting at midnight today.
Okay, tell us about it.
Yes, so we knew about this, Sony, holding this big press conference in Japan for Japanese audiences that, talking about the Vita and the PS4 and that shit for Japan, because basically all of their, big PS4 stuff so far has all been in the West. Their fucking PS4 reveal event was in New York, for God's sakes. And so they're finally, addressing the Japanese audience, and obviously there's a huge time difference between Colorado and Japan. So last night, I was about to go to bed, was looking at my laptop before I went to sleep, and was like, oh, fuck, that thing's happening right now. I guess I'll watch it. And then I watched it, and the whole thing was 2 hours long, so I ended up going to bed at 2:30 in the morning or something, and so I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep this night. But yeah, that's... And it was a pretty cool press conference. They announced more new cool stuff than I expected. To kind of keep me interested in watching it. But it was also really fun because obviously it was in Japan. Almost everybody presenting were Japanese people. They had Andrew House was out there, and he speaks Japanese apparently. I did not know that. And the conference was in Japanese. Almost all the trailers were in Japanese. But they had an English live stream of people translating and overdubbing it live as it was going on, which was convenient. I kind of was swapping between the two, just kind of at least the dub people are divvying, it's not what live translating Japanese would be super fucking hard. Everything about that language would make that very difficult. So I do not blame them for not being able to do that in the best way possible. But I was sort of hopping between those two live streams of just watching the Japanese version and the English version. But the English version was fucking great when they started showing trailers, and especially, I think you can find this on YouTube somewhere, but there's when they showed a trailer for Knack, because when the PS4 is launching in Japan, there's going to be a bundle with Knack or something. So they showed a new Knack trailer, and when it starts out, there's a lot of dialogue, and it's it's a trailer. It's we get exposition, then a joke, and then it's explosion, one-liner, explosion, one-liner, explosion, one-liner, then fade to black, release date, Every fucking trailer you've ever seen, you in no way, even if it's in Japanese, in no way need that trailer translated for you. Nothing important is presented in the dialogue. It's a fucking trailer. You don't need it translated. But the woman who was doing the dubbing, she decided, it was weird because some other Japanese trailers have been shown that they didn't bother to dub at all. But she decided to basically dub the whole trailer, which, trying to listen to one woman dub over a trailer for a Japanese video game where she clearly was not, a gamer, she didn't, wasn't able to sort of, keep up with sort of, the phrasing and stuff of, this, weird dramatic video game thing, and have her dub over almost all male characters. Fucking great. It was so funny because it's you have all these the dialogue is so fast and cutting between them that it's she couldn't keep up at all, and she's trying to do these deep voices for all these different characters. It was amazing. That part was fucking awesome. That was the best part of the whole press conference was listening to these people trying to live dub trailers in Japanese, which is I don't even know why they bothered, but that was great. But other than that, I guess do you want to talk about the actual big news that came out of the press conference?
Yeah, where do you want to start? I mean, we have the PS4 release date in Japan, which is February 22nd, 2014. So Japan's getting kind of gypped there, but they'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about that right now because that was like that's the only really major PS4 stuff. There was some other stuff, but the release date, which is February 22nd, and that's, I mean, it kind of shows you how much the video game market has changed since the PS3 launched. Because I believe the PS3 came out in Japan like a week earlier, and the PS2 was like months earlier in Japan before it came out over here. And obviously, when you're talking about like the Famicom and versus like the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Famicom's the Japanese name for the original Nintendo console. That was like a year before it ever came out over here. So you've seen like the Japanese market like over the last like 8 years lag behind the Western market to the point where Sony recognizes that the Western market of North America and Europe, especially North America, because this is like Microsoft's sort of home base. We like the North America is almost entirely Xbox owned, and so they've seen that's like so much more important as a market than trying to appeal to Japanese gamers that are moving away from home console markets and moving a lot more towards handheld, and like the iPhone market is really big over there. So they've realized, hey, like fucking one, Microsoft's not going to be able to do shit in Japan. They never have, never fucking will. Like Microsoft's just never going to make any traction in Japan. Japan's not a huge market. It is a market that is losing interest over time, whereas the video games are becoming more and more popular over here in the West. So it's like they're putting all their emphasis on over here. Like, you know, we're coming to fucking November 15th. Earliest date is fucking in America. Sony knows where the battle lines are. They know what markets they need to appeal to, and they're like directly targeting them. And so for Japan, like they even said, like one of the reasons why they're waiting so long to come out in Japan is one, they need to localize all the Western games that, you know, are coming out over here, and like so there will be actual fucking release games in Japan. And then they need like a small handful of Japanese-oriented video games. Like there's some sort of visual novel bullshit thing coming out. There's a new version of Dynasty Warriors 8, which is like going to have a PS4 edition that's coming out, and then there's the new Yakuza game, Yakuza Ishin. That actually was a really fucking cool trailer. Because apparently it takes place in the Meiji era in Japan. I had no idea.
I would play the shit out of that.
It looked super cool. You're playing as some like Shinsengumi dude. It was cool. It was a really cool trailer. I don't know if the game's good. I've never played a Yakuza game, but that's going to be a PS4 launch title as well in Japan. So it's like they had to just wait these months because like no traditional Japanese developers are, it seems to me, very heavily interested in making home console games. Like that's not where the big money is anymore over there. Like for God's sakes, one of the like PlayStation 4 exclusive games, like Japanese games that they advertised, is a port of a level 5 studio RPG made for the iOS, like for the iPhone. So it's like yeah, you can see like that totally tells you that's where that market has gone for the most part, and that's where it's going to keep on going.
Yeah,
and so yeah, they definitely are like, fuck it, like Japan. The people who are going to buy a PS4 in Japan are going to buy a PS4 in Japan. Nobody's going to buy an Xbox One, so we don't need to worry about it. You can come over there when it's ready, when you have games, when everything's localized. We can just drop it off like nobody cares. Like over here is where the battle lines are. So,
and I imagine actually that's going to work out well for them in the long run, because then, you know, a Japanese person who buys a PS4 on launch day in Japan will get a really good, you know, set for their society and, you know, their country. It sounds like it will not be diminished for them. They're taking the time to make sure they get a good PS4 experience.
It's like a couple of months is not a huge deal. Like that's very easy for me to say because it's coming out first where I live. So fine, who cares shit?
But I am saying I just think from Sony's perspective that's better for them than putting out a compromised release.
Yeah, it'd be really dumb of them to try to rush it and only have like 3 or 4 games come out.
I think the other big PS4 news, big-ish, that I saw on my list was they put out a little bit about Final Fantasy XIV on the PS4.
Yeah, that's not what I was thinking. Like, I mean, there's one of the cool things is because, you know, the beta or whatever is ongoing for the PS3 version right now, and apparently you'll be able to transfer characters from the PS3 version to the PS4 version. So that's cool. Like,
and I also saw that you will be able to. No, I'm just saying there were a couple things that came out about that today. If you bought the PS3 version, you get the PS4 version for free.
Oh, I didn't know they didn't bother to translate that part when I was watching.
This was maybe something that came out with it, but
because I haven't had any time to. Because after I watched the live stream, I went to sleep and then immediately went to classes when I got up, and I've just gotten back when we recorded this, so I've not had time to digest anything else.
Right. But other than that, most of this conference was
Vita. Well, there's one other PS4 thing they showed Deep Down, which is that Capcom game that originally was shown at the PS4 reveal event, and they had like a pretty extensive like live demo and trailer of the game actually playing, and it looks pretty cool. Like, you know, the original reveal was just like this kind of bullshit CG trailer, and we had no idea what the game really was other than fantasy stuff. And apparently, it's fantasy stuff. It's some sort of dragon or like dungeon crawler that maybe has like a loot element. They said like the levels are randomized and monsters like are somewhat randomized in some way. It wasn't entirely clear what they meant, because again, I was watching a not fantastic translation of the press conference. But the weirdest part of the deep down stuff was it's almost weirdly Assassin's Creed-y in a way of apparently the actual frame for the game is like you're some dude who, when you touch objects, like this is kind of a common telepathic power in like fiction. When you touch objects, you can relive the memories of like people who've held it and stuff like that. So apparently that's the framework of the game. So you're not a dude just fighting dragons in some cave. You're a dude who touched the thing that was touched by a dude who killed some dragons in some fucking caves. So it's just like Assassin's Creed, where it's like, you're not this cool, badass Italian dude who's running around Renaissance Italy, like, assassinating people. You're a dude who's like the great-great-great-great-grandson of that dude, and you're in a computer reliving that dude's life. It's just like, but you're actually a dude playing as the dude, reliving that dude's life. So it's like these weird abstraction.
Did the game look good to you?
Yeah, the game looks fucking cool. Like, I don't know, we didn't like get a lot of like meat and potatoes of what the gameplay is. Like, it sort of looks like a hack and slash 3D thing. I don't know. The game looked gorgeous, like graphically, but it seemed cool. But it's like, I have seen a similar narrative setup in a video game, and it did not at all work well for that video game. So
yeah,
maybe this game will not have a great story. I don't know, but
who knows? We'll see.
So yeah, that's more or less it for PS4 stuff.
Yeah. So you want to talk about some of the PS Vita stuff?
Yeah, because it's mostly, and this again shows Sony knows what the fuck they're doing in the Japanese market, or like it very much shows what the Japanese market is like nowadays, that almost all of this press conference was Vita stuff, whereas where all the Western focused stuff, the Vita was like a footnote at the beginning of like, hey, we still have a Vita, there's going to be like a price cut or something.
Yeah. Let's start with the slightly less interesting news to build to the big one here.
Okay, sure.
At least what in my conception is less interesting.
Yeah.
There will be a Vita redesign.
Yes.
This has been long rumored. It'll be the 2000 series. This was the PSP. They had a 2000 series, 3000 series. It got multiple redesigns. Yeah. You know, it's not the most radical redesign in the world.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar. It's like it's a little bit thinner. It's got a longer battery life.
Yeah, it's 15% lighter, 20% thinner. I believe the screen is the same size, but it's an LED screen and not an OLED screen. So it's diminished quality in that way. But it's cheaper, and it comes in 6 colors. And it doesn't
actually. I'm pretty sure it's the same price as the Vita now. After the price drop, like I don't think it's any cheaper actually.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay,
and I would be cautious about the screen stuff, because that I have heard that be going back and forth a lot. That it seems like the translation on that was maybe a little bit funky or something.
Oh, really? Okay.
That like it's definitely not an OLED screen, but like from what I've seen, people aren't sure whether or not this like the new whatever the screen actually is, whether or not it's going to be worse or better. So I'd wait until we get more information before making a judgment on that.
Okay. Either way, yeah, you basically get you do not get a diminished Vita experience overall.
Yeah,
I'm looking at like the back of the system. It's the same back, just with different colors sometimes. And if you've ever held a Vita, it's a tremendously comfortable, portable gaming platform. I love playing that thing, and it looks like it's very similar. This is only coming out in Japan right now.
Yeah, like all this stuff that we're going to be talking about is all Japan. Like don't make necessarily any assumptions about the stuff coming out over here, even though most of it probably will. Like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm probably actually less sure about this thing than the other thing for now.
Oh, the other thing's definitely coming out, but this
one, just because they just did the price drop here, I don't think it's a priority here right now.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah,
I think it'll make its way here eventually. Certainly,
and for some reason, almost none of those colors will make its way over here, because that's how it works. Yeah. For some reason, the Japanese market gets all the really all the different colors for their handheld systems, whereas we get like blue and black or something.
Right. So either way. That's kind of cool. And it comes with a built-in memory card.
It has 1 gigabyte of built-in memory. They also announced a whole new frontier of memory storage on the Vita, which is a 64 gigabyte memory card, which is 2 times the amount of memory in the previously biggest memory card, which is 32 gigs. Now it's 64 gigabytes, which is $100, which is the same, I believe, as what the 32 gigabyte was priced at before the price drop.
Yes, that's true.
So it's actually, judging by Vita memory cards, it's a huge amount of value for the amount of memory you get. Judging by, common logic, it is a terrible value for the amount of memory you get. But,
yes. What size memory do you have in your Vita?
I think I have a 16.
I have 16 too.
Totally. Like it's something where it's like I have it filled up, like, but I don't need to. Like if I.
That's what I was going to say.
It's more than enough memory I need. Like, I don't need to have a dozen different Vita games loaded onto my Vita at one time.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that definitely with the way the PlayStation infrastructure works now digitally and with PlayStation Plus, I can have all my save data in the cloud, so I can easily, like, Persona 4, I have on there, Persona 4 Golden, just because I love that game and it makes me feel safe to have it on there. But it's in cloud storage. I could take that off, put it back on, and I wouldn't lose anything.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
For me, I just bought a physical card that has Persona 4 the Golden on it, because I know I'm never going to put another physical game inside my Vita ever. So it's like, why would I bother? And I would never delete Persona 4 the Golden from the Vita, so why would I bother taking up like 5 gigabytes of memory when I can just fucking put a card in there?
Right. By the way, my point is, you can download anything on the Vita. You can get everything digitally. I have never bought a physical game on there. I just get digital stuff, and you can re-download it as many times as you want. You can back it up to your PC, Mac, PS3. It's super easy. You do not need significant amounts of storage on that.
That's 64 gigabytes is excessive. If the 32 gigabytes card was like
reasonably priced.
Yeah, it was like $10 to $20. I might pick that up just for the mild convenience it provides me. But 16 gigabytes is totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I do, for instance, is I just put all my Vita games on my PS3 and just pull them off there when I need to, because Wi-Fi at my house is kind of slow, and the Vita does not have the world's most powerful Wi-Fi in it.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways to do it. You do not need a ton of storage. If you're a Japanese person listening to this, you do not necessarily need the 64 gigabytes. I know it's tempting to give your 10,000 yen away for that. Had to do the exchange really quickly in my head there, but don't do it. Put it towards games. You could buy 4 games for that.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like you could buy just wait for a sale for PSP and PS1 games. You could buy fucking 50.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Buy 2 years of PlayStation Plus and have games out until 2015. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's the Vita redesign. It definitely seems like something that it's not so radical that the appeal of the system is lost, but I think it'll give it a nice shot in the arm in Japan.
Yeah. Trying to think if there were any interesting games. There were definitely a lot. There's a Phantasy Star game that was announced.
Phantasy Star Nova.
Yeah, Nova. I keep on forgetting it's Phantasy Star Nova and it's Soul Sacrifice Delta, which is a new Soul Sacrifice game. So it's I keep on thinking it's it's Final Fantasy, or if it's Phantasy Star Delta and it's Soul Sacrifice Nova. Nope, other way around. Easy mistake to make. Yeah, those seem interesting. Who knows? I'm sure Soul Sacrifice Delta will probably come over here. But Phantasy Star Online 2, which has been out for 2 years, it's the MMO version in Japan, that has not yet been localized, even though they said it would be localized. It has not been localized. So who knows if Phantasy Star Nova will come out over here. Hopefully it does. But
did you ever play Soul Sacrifice?
I played the demo. It seemed okay.
I played the demo too. It didn't really grip me.
Okay.
I could kind of understand why it was a hit in Japan.
Yeah, it definitely is. Judging on other Japanese games or games of that style, it seemed good. Yeah, it definitely was not something that I enjoyed the demo, but it didn't grab me enough to be I really want to play this game.
Yeah. All right, so that's all that. I think the biggest news and the most surprising news was they've announced the PlayStation Vita TV.
Yeah, this is definitely the big interesting thing out of the press conference.
So the easiest comparison to make is to the Apple TV. It's a little set-top box, although it's much smaller than an Apple TV, probably half the size of that. It's like a deck of cards, is what I've seen it compared to. It's little, it's white. You connect it to your TV via HDMI, and you can play Vita games via a slot, and then stream.
Yeah, there's a card slot for the games, and then also a memory card slot in it.
Yeah. So you can just basically, if you have your memory card with all your games in it in your Vita, take it out, put it in your Vita TV, I assume.
Yeah.
And use it the same way, or play card games. And you can use a DualShock 3, the PS3 controller, to play them.
Yeah, and then when the PS4 comes out, they'll patch in DualShock 4 support.
Okay, cool. That's my question, was why only DualShock 3?
Well, they'll patch because this is coming out November 14th. It's coming out 3 months before the PS4 is coming out in Japan. So that's
good
why.
Good point.
They don't need to bother about worrying about DualShock 4 support yet if you're getting this thing at launch in Japan.
Okay, so that'll be patched in, and you can stream PS4 games to it using remote play.
Yeah.
In case just playing it off your PS4 isn't good enough.
Well, no, I mean,
I see what.
The obvious situation for that is if someone else is watching football on your TV, on your main TV, and you're hey, I've got a TV in my room. This, when I was living at home, this would have been very useful. they are taking up the main screen TV, but I have this TV in the basement that's like I don't have the Xbox hooked up to. I could just stream it down and remote play that way. Like, that's
cool. No, I see it. And
well, you were
honestly,
making fun of it, which is a cool fucking feature. Like, I think it's really cool.
No, it's a cool feature. I
don't know why you're making fun of it, asshole.
I'm sorry. The Vita TV is actually something that interests me. I think it's an interesting product. It's not something I personally would get looking at all the features, probably. Although if it were, I don't know, if it were $50 one day, I probably would just pick it up for the hell of it. I like the idea, though, of playing some Vita games, which definitely feel like they could be great, bigger screen experiences. Like, I would like to play Persona 4 Gold and stream that to my TV.
Me too, but how I would play Persona 4 the Golden is, and I'll just, like, normally playing the game, I'd just be playing it on the Vita, and then when I go into the TV world, then I take it out and put it in the PS Vita TV, and so then I'm playing, when I'm in the TV world, I'm playing on the TV, and then when I come out of the TV world, that's when I take the cartridge out and put it back in my Vita, and then when I'm going through my school day, I'm just playing on the Vita.
Okay.
That's how I play that game, because that would be fucking awesome.
That'd be a good way to, like, get yourself into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, Vita games look great, and they'd probably look great on a TV too. So that'd be kind of interesting. You can also stream all your PS1 classics and stuff.
Yeah, and then also it's just like it's a media device, So if you want to have a TV that does not have anything that allows you to stream like Netflix and stuff like that too, you would be able to buy this and do that. Mm-hmm. So like that.
Definitely, if it has all the stuff like Apple TV has, which is Netflix, Hulu Plus, HBO Go.
It would presumably have every single app that you could get on the Vita, which is maybe not HBO Go, but all those other ones.
HBO Go has not come to any PlayStation platform yet, although I assume it will in the future. But definitely, if it had that, I would get rid of my Apple TV and get this. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It definitely would be able to do Netflix and Hulu Plus. So
it definitely, and I guess for me, what I'm saying is just because I know I'm getting a PS4, this does not do enough on top of what the PS4 does for it to be attractive to me.
Yeah, I would only like how my situation right now. This wouldn't help me any, but I could see a hypothetical if I was moved into a bigger place or something that had multiple TVs, had to deal with this issue of I might want to have Netflix streaming on all these TVs, but I don't have enough devices to do that with. This, I think, would be a very convenient thing to pick up that would also have added functionality with your PS4 and PS Vita that just buying a Roku would not do for you.
It's definitely this kind of thing where if you're going to be in the PlayStation ecosystem, this would be a nice tool.
Yeah.
Just a little addition.
Should say it's $100, so that's also a pretty cheap price point.
Identical to the Apple TV.
Yeah, so
pretty good there. I kind of think this is an interesting idea. It's definitely something that should make the Vita more attractive to some people. I like that they're making the Vita this cross-media platform. You can use it in all these different ways now. And that's going to be kind of interesting. Although I'll admit, I look at this and I'm like, I really wish the PS4 could just do this on its own. That'd be awesome. If the PS4 just had a Vita card slot, it did everything, that'd be great.
Yeah, the PS4 could just magically beam its signal into any TV you wanted. Amazing.
But the PS4 cannot do everything, sadly.
It's not God in video game form, unfortunately.
So you think this will come to the United States?
Yeah, this will definitely eventually come. Maybe it might come out in the States by the time the PS4 launches in Japan. Who knows?
Yeah. Right. This definitely seems like something, too, that they could bundle with the PS4 when it launches. That might be a nice way to get the price up a little bit. So, looks pretty cool. Yeah,
I think it's a smart and really interesting move. Them sort of putting their foot into this multimedia, the multimedia ocean. Whereas Microsoft tried to drown themselves in it when they announced the Xbox One with TV sports bullshit. Yeah. This is hey. Obviously it doesn't do the TV stuff. It's you have this device that does all the stuff you need in this compact, cheap form that also adds functionality onto the PS4. That's a much smarter way to me to do multimedia than how Xbox One was trying to do it. But.
Yeah, I agree. So, and it has more advanced Wi-Fi I'm looking at here than the PS Vita does, so don't have to worry about that. The specs, it goes up to 1080i because, the PS Vita is not a full 1080p device for games, I don't think.
Wouldn't make any sense because the screen is not that high resolution on the Vita.
It's also 5 inches.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, It's not a big deal that it's not that resolution, but it's it'd be ridiculous to expect a Vita game to be 1080p.
Yeah, so it's pretty good though. Looks. It's definitely an idea that you would not expect, and it's surprising, but it's not a bad surprise in the 2DS sense of the word.
Yeah, it's not. I don't even know. I can't even come up with a name that'd be dumb enough, as dumb for this as the 2DS is for what the 2DS is.
And I think the Vita is obviously in kind of dire straits in some ways, but
I think
Sony
it's pulling itself out.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think they're making some very smart and subtle moves where in the United States, they very clearly focused on this is just a great indie game machine. Yeah. In Japan, they focused on this is a great AAA platform machine. Yeah. And they're doing the redesign in Japan, price cut over here, price cut over there, Vita TV, the remote play support with the PS4. They're just making it a very attractive proposition and highlighting that this is a tremendous piece of hardware, and here are some reasons that owning it is a good deal.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, but the Vita, financially, it's doing better. It is on an upswing. It's selling a lot more than it used to, so...
Absolutely. So
it makes me happy, because it's such a great piece of hardware.
It's a great system.
It really deserves, to do a lot better than it does. But
yeah, I love playing it. It's so easy to play. Honestly, the reason I am most excited for the PS4 is because it's taking a lot of the philosophy from the PS Vita, like the way the menu, you can just put a game to sleep instantly, or go do something else and come back to your game and you won't have lost anything. It's just, I love... The Vita really feels like a next-gen kind of thing to me, and I feel like that's our first big taste of it. Yeah. And the PS4 is going to be like the fully realized version of that. So I'm super excited about all that. So,
but anyways, now we get to the actual most important thing that was revealed at the Sony press conference last night. Or this morning, technically.
What was it, Sean?
Which was, so when they're doing all the Vita stuff, they revealed there's going to be a bundle with, I believe it's with the new version of the Vita, that's going to come with, 5 different otome games, which, for those who don't know, it's basically the video... They're all visual novels, and it's that genre is the video game equivalent of the trashy romance novel. And it's coming packaged with a white version of the Vita in Japan, so if you are a young girl in Japan who likes playing visual novels about kind of hot boys who are weirdly interested in girls that really aren't that interesting, there's a fucking... the Vita is the console for you, and they fucking proved it. I was impressed by Sony's just... I don't know. Watching that press conference is so interesting because when they're doing the Vita stuff, the marketing for Japanese video games is so different that it's made me think about how you would never, ever in a million years in fucking North America or anywhere in Europe see a video game press conference that has a whole 5-minute section dedicated to something marketed towards adolescent girls. Never would you ever see that over here.
No.
Ever. And it's I just think it's so funny that we as the video game industry is having all these issues with thinking about representation of women in video games and sexism and stuff like that. That kind of definitely has got brought back up again and again and again very recently with some comments that Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid fame made about a character named Quiet who's in a bikini basically. So it's everyone's oh, this female character's in bikini, and it's everyone it's very commonly happens with Japanese developers because they have different ideas of sexuality and representation in that country. So I think it's fucking fascinating that everybody, complaining about all this shit never bothers to look at video games that are actually marketed towards women in Japan. That we have none of that here. Not a single fucking one that I can think of other than Barbie Adventure or a Bratz game that would come out for the Game Boy.
Right.
So it's I don't know. I thought, because that's something that you would never hear about that. Nobody's going to run a story about a white Vita bundle in Japan with, 5 games aimed at adolescent girls.
Yeah, I had not heard about this until right now.
I would never have known about it if I did not watch that live stream. And I just saw it, and it's I think that's fucking fascinating. Why does nobody talk about this? But
right.
Yeah.
That's probably a really smart move on their part.
Yeah, because it's it shows... Again, that's what the Japanese market is. It's a lot more people play video games because of they play video games. You're sitting on a fucking train for an hour to get to work or something. You want to play a game, and so that's why handheld consoles are really huge over there. And the smartphone, iPhones are starting to take that away. So it's I think it's really smart that Sony's hey, let's put this huge emphasis on the Vita and market the Vita towards alternative markets, or definitely what we would consider to be alternative markets.
Right.
So yeah, I'll definitely be importing one of those when it comes out.
Absolutely. I agree that's a fascinating case study and a very interesting one. So is there any other big gaming news we want to get through?
I think that's probably about it.
Okay. Well, then let's move on. We're going to talk about Red vs. Blue Season 11, but we said at the start of this podcast we had not seen Episode 12. Episode 12 actually just came out. We're going to pause and watch it.
Okay, sure.
Why not?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's not make this podcast outdated literally the second it comes out.
All right.
That's a good idea.
We're going to watch Red vs. Blue. See you in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sean, I can't believe you were right. It was 2D animated.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. And then it went, like taking a direction from Nintendo. They just would do it with one-dimensional animation, which I thought was just like straight lines. And I was really impressed with how much story and humor they could convey with just straight lines.
All right, we just saw episode 12 for real. Let's talk, Sean. Overall, I'll ask you first. What have you thought of Red vs. Blue season 11 so far?
I think it's been pretty funny. Like, I haven't loved it as much as most like Red vs. Blue seasons as they were airing, but I think it's good. No, I like it.
I have more complex thoughts, I guess. I feel like last year was obviously a really landmark year for the show. Season 10, one of their best seasons, arguably their biggest and richest. It definitely felt like the show kind of made a creative leap. They were telling a much bigger story, much more in-depth. And it was very funny at times, very dramatically satisfying. They obviously took a step back this year, and I'll admit, since season 6, which is the first non-Blood Gulch year,
Reconstruction.
Yeah, Reconstruction. They've done all the odd-numbered seasons have been like throwback years.
Yeah.
With season 9 was half throwback, half kind of looking forward with the CGI stuff.
Yeah.
But and I have not liked those seasons. Season 7, I just kind of flat out don't like. That's the Recreation one.
Yeah, Recreation.
And Recreation, I think, has some funny bits, but overall, I think it's a pretty big mess. Then Season 9, I strongly dislike the Blood Gulch parts of that season. I think it's just as blatant an example of treading water until creative resources can be thrown at it as I've ever seen.
I like Season 7 okay, but I agree with you with the Blood Gulch aspects of Season 9 I don't think are particularly good.
And so I'll say after Season 10, I was particularly disappointed when I saw they were going to be doing another Blood Gulch throwback year this season, because Season 10 felt like the show moved forward so immensely that going back again would be a disappointment. And I was actually surprised to see, I should also say, usually I don't like Red vs. Blue seasons when they're airing as much as I do when I watch them all at once. In fact, I often get fed up, and some seasons I've just waited until they're done and watched them that way.
Yeah.
I think Season 9 might have been one I had to give up on while it was airing week to week, and then I wound up finishing it when it came out on DVD. But Season 10, I thought they had really mastered the episodic content. Like, each episode really was satisfying and everything. Anyway, that's kind of my baggage carrying into this. And I liked the first 7, 8, 9 episodes of Season 11 actually a whole hell of a lot. I thought they were very funny, probably just in terms of straight humor value. I was laughing at this more than anything since the Blood Gulch Chronicles. I thought there were a lot of really funny bits. I thought swapping out Church for Washington added a new dynamic to the Blue team that was interesting. I think Washington is a character that has become increasingly funny, and he had a good dynamic there. Some good caboose material with him being sad about Church being gone. Some decent Red. The Red team is always the most hit and miss element of this show sometimes.
Yeah. Like, but it definitely, I think in particular, the Sergeant Griff stuff, like, that's just...
It's played out.
It's been so overdone at this point. It's like, we get it. Sarge wants to kill Griff.
Yeah. And also I feel like that's a narrative betrayal because they have moved past that in many ways over the last couple of years. So going back to it doesn't really make sense. But I liked the first couple episodes. But I was also waiting for the story to kick into gear, because my usual arc with Red vs. Blue seasons when I watch them week to week is that I'm frustrated until the story kicks in, and then I'm more interested. And like Season 5 is a perfect example where when I go back and watch the whole thing, I actually really, really like Season 5.
Yeah, Season 5 is a great season.
It's a great season. At the time when it was airing week to week, there was a while where I was kind of frustrated with it until things kicked into play, and then actually some of what I thought was non-story material kind of came back into play. It got very good very fast. But Season 11... We just watched Season 12, or Episode 12, and I think halfway through it I said to you, they almost did something story-driven. And that's been my entire feeling with Season 11. I am so sick and tired of the narrative cock teases this season, where every episode has to end with the dude in black who we don't know who he is, like looking at the reds and blues with a sniper rifle and saying something ominous, and then we have melancholy music that is in no way earned for an emotion at the end of the episode. And that's every fucking episode. Last episode 11 was like half devoted to that guy. No actual story happened though. And so we're 12 episodes in. There's probably only 7 or 8 episodes left. I'm really frustrated at this point, and actually my breaking point with this season, to the point where I'm probably going to wait until it's all over now, having seen just episode 12 here, kind of reaffirming what I thought. But like episode 10 was the big frustration point for me, because I was really hoping they would kick something into gear there. Yeah. And because episode 10 for the last few years has been the year usually where text shows up. Yeah. But also story kind of kicks into gear at that point, especially in season 8. Yeah. That's where that all kind of came together. And this year, nothing happened. And episode 10 was the one where...
I mean, they very deliberately, because, the more hardcore fan base were all expecting something big to happen in episode 10, that they very deliberately sidestepped it with, when Donut steps in. And
it annoyed me, because I don't ever need to see Donut again. I don't ever need to see Doc again. I sure as shit never need to see Lopez again. I didn't think he was funny past season 2. I never need to see Lopez. I was angry when they brought that character back, because I actually
he's had a line, dude.
I just don't. He's not funny. He's not a funny character. He says stuff in
Spanish. I agree,
Boo-hoo.
But again, he said a line. I think maybe 2 lines.
Okay.
Since he was introduced 3 episodes
ago. Fine, but the point still stands. The point still stands. I don't think Donut's funny. I don't think Doc's funny.
I like Donut. Okay. I think Doc's been a little. I don't know. I don't know why, especially Doc, they keep on bringing back. With Donut, I think Donut could be really funny. I just don't think they've used him well since the Blood Gulch Chronicles.
Yeah, what's a joke beyond just gay jokes? What jokes have they told with Donut since the Blood Gulch Chronicles?
But you can say that about almost all the characters in terms of they have their shtick, and they've had that shtick for a very, very long time, and
that's been the problem. But back in the Blood Gulch days, which I still think are the show's best seasons as a whole unit. Donut had other shadings. Donut could be inept in ways that had nothing to do with the sexuality jokes.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I'm saying they've used him poorly since then.
Yeah.
That's why I'm happy to see Donut come back, because I want them to have Donut really come back and be funny and a part of everything again. Because since those teams got split up, they never did a whole lot with him. And now that Tucker's back and he's in full force, I'm really happy with Tucker. And I want
Tucker's been funny
Donut,
this season.
I want Donut to have that too. I want Donut to come back.
Yeah, but just season 10 was another big narrative sidestep where things almost happened but didn't. The big thing now is that Caboose is the leader of the blue team, which is a plot point that feels very half-baked to me, because leadership has never meant anything on Red versus Blue. Mm-hmm. It kind of does on the Red team, because Sarge, that's his persona, is that he's in command.
Yeah.
But even then, but they already did a great joke with that in season 6, where Griff has become a sergeant.
Yeah.
And Sarge demotes him. And all that stuff. But anyway, and so that joke to me that's now been a 3-episode arc has not played out interestingly to me. Freckles was, I thought, the big robot dude was funny at the beginning. Freckles. And I still like Caboose's sort of interactions with Freckles. In episode 12 we just watched, he wants to make Freckles a small hat, and I like that joke.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really feels like treading water. It seems like this was the season that was made entirely because the animators are going off and doing RWBY, and they didn't have any resources to throw at this other than Miles. So Miles is writing and directing it, and I think he's doing a decent job, and I think sometimes he's done a very good job.
Yeah.
But from an overall arcing standpoint, it's very frustrating, and the fact that just nothing's happening, and I wouldn't mind nothing happening if they didn't do these constant narrative cock teases. Because those do nothing for me. I don't care a damn about who the guy in the black suit is or any of that, because he doesn't mean anything yet.
Yeah.
So if they just wanted to do 20 episodes of jokes with the Reds and Blues, I wouldn't necessarily love that, but I would like it more than if they did that punctuated by almost story, but never real story.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, for me... Oh, no, I feel like you almost, other than, I think the last season, you've almost always hated whatever's going on with Red versus Blue as it's airing. It's always...
I liked season 6 and 8.
You.
Season 6, 8, and 10 I liked while they were airing, and I liked them when they were done.
I feel like when I was talking to you about when season 8 was airing, I don't think you
necessarily I still think season 8 has problems. All the stuff with Doc and Washington has always
too much of the season. Yeah, I think it has problems. But
and I think episodically...
You were very frustrated with it when it aired too.
But here's the thing: season 8 eventually kicked into gear, and I think I liked it at that point. I probably was hard on season 8 for its first 10 episodes.
You definitely,
But we're past 10. We're past the halfway point.
Yeah, I mean, we still got 8 episodes left. But my point is that my attitude with Red versus Blue is I agree with you that I don't necessarily find these off years as interesting as the on years, I guess. But I also it's a 5-minute web video that is if there's 3 or 4 laughs in there, I'm kind of happy. I don't know. I don't expect a huge something from it.
I guess I don't need it, but
even after last year,
But last year they pushed it further, and I guess my view creatively is that if you're not going to stick with that, and if you're determined to regress, I personally don't need to see it. And
okay, I mean that's fine. For me,
that's just me personally. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't care. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. For me, my biggest problem with the season so far is I think in terms of the style of humor, it's very clear that Bernie's not writing everything anymore, because there are too many topical jokes. Like, you actually, like, when we were watching the episode, you pointed out they made a joke about Siri, and you're like, oh, very topical. And I felt that, like...
being sarcastic.
Yeah. Like, every single episode, I feel, has had, like, a handful. Like, there are other ones in this episode, too, of, like, jokes that's, like...
I don't think they're funny.
Yeah, Red vs. Blue has never... Like, those kinds of jokes can be funny in the right setting, but Red vs. Blue, with, like, its narrative structure and its, like, whole conceit of, like, this is, like, takes place in some sort of Halo-esque universe... It doesn't make sense that, like, they make a Siri joke, or it doesn't make sense that they'll make some reference to some, like, pop culture thing going on right now. That's, like, it always, whenever that happens, like Doc said, have you guys ever seen Lost? It's like, that doesn't, like, I hate, like, they've made other Lost jokes before, and it's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, like, it doesn't work for me when they ever make, like, these sort of, like, pop culture jokes, and, like, there've been way too much this season that always kind of, like, turn me off to the humor aspect.
And honestly, it's things like that really do, when you look at this in the context of the series, they made the stray Battlestar Galactica joke and Lost joke back in the first 5 seasons. But
it was very rare. It was very rare that they would make a pop culture joke. This one is at least one every episode, but usually multiple ones each episode.
I agree, and they're a problem. But my point I was going to make is that even when they made them back then, they fit more back then before the show had gotten its own set in stone mythology.
Yeah.
And the show, honestly, I think has moved to a place where, even if they want to go back and do more, laid-back seasons, I think they have to recognize where the show has gone. They have to recognize that these character relationships have excelled past the point of just Griff and Sarge hating each other. And I do think it's kind of a betrayal to having watched the show for 11 years if you're going to make a season that just ignores most of what's happened in the past.
Yeah, the tricky part with that is that if you're trying to do... Like I completely agree with you, but, like, I can see from a writer's point of view, the comedy aspect of it, like, it would be very hard to keep on making seasons that have a strong comic bent if you're trying to take all those, like, very dramatic character arcs into account. It's almost like having, like, a romantic comedy or something and having the people get together too early. Like, it's like there can't be that much character development, or else you don't have anything to go off of anymore.
I guess so, but the flip side of that also is that even if none of that had happened, more jokes about Griff hating Simmons or Griff...
Yeah, I think they've been stale for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's an issue of the characters being this old at some point that it's like...
Well, and does Red versus Blue either need to end or make a big change? Do we need...
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think it should probably end at this point, but, like, it's not a big deal to me.
Right.
Like, I don't love the season. I don't hate the season. Like, I don't feel like I've loved Red vs. Blue since probably Reconstruction. Like, I really liked the last season, but I wasn't, like, infatuated with it. Like, I think there were some parts of it that were really cool, but it's like, I don't know. Like for me personally, Red vs. Blue has run its course of being, like, something I'm really into, and now it's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of funny.
No, and I agree, and I think Season 10, for me, I was more invested in. I really liked it, and I felt... I guess why Season 10 worked for me, where other seasons hadn't, and it was such a culmination of what they had done, where Season 10 would have been the perfect ending point. It really hits a really nice full circle, and I think it's emotionally hits all the right notes. It's still funny. It's tremendously exciting. The production values were off the charts. Lots of good stuff there. And I don't know, I feel like Red vs. Blue this year has such less of a voice, even if you compare it to comparative seasons, like, Blood Gulch Chronicles days or something. They're just... And obviously, we're 11 years in, that energy just isn't ever going to come back that there was back in Season 2, which to me is the show's best season.
You're wrong, it's Season 3, but...
Season 3 is one that does not hold up for me anymore.
I still really like Season 3. I mean, I think maybe it's a little hard to necessarily watch all in one sitting, maybe, but...
I don't think it's funny. I think Season 3 has interesting narrative stuff. I think Season 3... Season 2 is my favorite because I think it is the funniest, and yet it also moves at a good clip. It doesn't have pacing issues. It's Season 2, and I also quote Season 2 more than any other piece of media. I quote Red vs. Blue Season 2 all the fucking time, because that just season to me is so... just hit for hit, joke for joke, is like the batting average is so high on that one. And I guess when I watch... and that's the thing I always kind of compare these kinds of seasons of Red vs. Blue to. And I think Season 2 honestly is a good model because it was enormously funny, and it wasn't as convoluted narratively as a Season 3 or a Season 5 or something. And yet it still told stories, and the characters moved over the course of that season. Things happened. Mythology was uncovered.
But again, that's because those characters had space to move. Like these characters have been around for so long. At a certain point, they can't do anything more with these characters eventually. That's like...
Well, then I think it's probably time to start contemplating us. If they need Red versus Blue for revenue, and I understand that, probably either a new team of Reds and Blues or a spin-off of some kind or something.
Yeah, because like Digimon, like Red versus Blue Adventure 2, where you have all the new kids come in, but then it's like Sarge is still kind of around to give them advice every now and then.
Sure, why not? Something to reinvigorate it, and honestly, having, in Season 10, the freelancers there, that kind of stuff, that reinvigorates it in a way where if you just reduce it to its original elements, it doesn't work anymore for me as strongly. And, I hope the next 8 get better. There's clearly a story that is going to happen here. I hope it doesn't happen in the last minute of the finale.
Yeah.
Which could happen. I mean, that's basically Season 7 in a nutshell. Is the finale had story, up to that point, really nothing.
Yeah.
So... we'll see. That's Red versus Blue. Their other big production right now, I just want to touch upon in case people ask about it, is RWBY. Which was huge. I mean, that is their big push right now.
Yeah.
That had a lot of hype. It's very popular.
I haven't looked on forums or subreddits or anything so I don't know.
It's the number 3 most streamed show on Crunchyroll. So... Crunchyroll, quit encouraging them. Let's just say it. How much of RWBY have you watched?
I still have only seen the first episode. I was going to, in preparation for this podcast, because I knew we were going to talk about Rooster Teeth stuff, I was going to watch the rest of them, and I was like, I don't want to.
I watched up through episode 5. I actually watched the premiere, I tried to watch episode 2, turned it off, and then I came back and watched everything up to that point, which was episode 5, it was 5.
What are they at, 8 or 9 now?
8 came out last week, so we're at 8, and I was going to watch 6, 7, and 8 for this podcast and couldn't bring myself to. Yeah. And I guess we can say it right now, our opinion on that show is somewhat low.
I should say, since I've only seen the first episode, I can't say a whole lot about it. But since you've seen more, and I've talked,
you want me to give the
since you've seen more of it, you can give your spiel on it, and I'll give my interpretation of what I felt after I watched the first episode.
I want to lead with the positives because I do think RWBY is an interesting production in some ways. There's an energy to it and I don't want to say voice because that's my problem with it, but there's an energy to it and a style to it, but mainly the energy that is different than anything Rooster Teeth has ever done, is a little different than a lot of the stuff out there on the internet, and is charming to a certain degree. I think the characters...
I will agree with that. That for nothing else, for what it is on the internet, RWBY is very unique.
Yeah.
For its space is something that a web series would be. It's very strange and unique.
And I want to give Rooster Teeth, a small round of applause for swinging for the fences with this one.
Yeah, for giving it a shot. It's cool.
They clearly threw a lot of money and resources at this, and it is something that I feel is fleshed out to a certain degree. That is, you watch it and it feels like something, and that's good. But what it feels like, and this is my issue with voice, is that I think, backing up a little bit, there were 4 trailers that came out for RWBY. They were almost like proof of concept pieces before the show launched.
Yeah.
And those, to me, none of them had dialogue or anything. They were very atmospheric.
I mean, some of them had a little bit of dialogue.
Here and there.
It was not good dialogue.
No, it wasn't. But I liked
premonition of things to come, perhaps.
Yes. I liked those trailers generally because I thought there was a voice to them that was unlike on other Rooster Teeth productions. There was kind of this big mythological tone, kind of reverential.
Yeah, especially the original, the red trailer, the RWBY trailer of RWBY, the main character, and her death scythe fighting werewolves and shit. It was so crazy and cool, and looked like a trailer for a Bayonetta type game, but in a really cool way.
Yeah, and I was super excited to see RWBY and see what it was actually going to be, because those trailers seemed to have some kind of voice, and I wanted to see fully fleshed out what that voice was. And the most disappointing thing to me about RWBY, the series, through the 5 episodes I've seen, is that there is no voice. The voice is, we are going to rip off as many silly, and not even necessarily good anime, just silly anime as we can find. We're going to rip off
very generic,
very generic, silly anime 101 kind of stuff. And that disappoints me to no end, because RWBY is basically pastiche without purpose to me. It's just, we like these anime. Now, I'm not even going to say anime in general, because I think it's a very
it's a specific kind of, most of it's kind of like shonen, we're in a school training in magic bullshit. That's a dozen different
It's like, we like these anime, we're going to rip those off.
Yeah, we're going to take every single cliche, every trope common between all these dozen or so different types of shows and just throw them together.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything more to it than that. There's nothing deeper to it than that so far, and there's nothing that draws you in more than just the pastiche. And, pastiche is something that can work beautifully. Obviously, the best example of this in modern fiction is Quentin Tarantino, who is someone who wears his influences on his sleeves, but has a voice that is 100% his own.
But like a Quentin Tarantino movie is a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie. Like, you're not going to mistake Django Unchained for a Western made in the 70s.
Yeah, and Django pays homage to spaghetti westerns and stuff, but it has substance. It has a voice that is all its own. It says something beyond the pastiche.
Yeah.
And that is something that RWBY... And it's unfair to compare RWBY to Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think that's something that you have to keep in mind, which is that I feel like if you're going to have influences, that's okay. Everyone does, but you have to have those influences combined to do something more. And
so you
far,
have to have something, your own unique take and voice, shine through all the cliche.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's like, why am I watching this show and not these other shows that did it first and did it better?
Right. And that's RWBY in a nutshell. And the thing is, as it went along, I think episode 1 was interesting to me because, for one, it's the best animated of them so far. I heard episode 8 was another uptick, but basically as soon as 1 ends, the animation goes off a cliff. They clearly put the money into 1, and even then 1 is kind of rough in parts. But either way, 1 had an actual action scene and stuff. It was kind of interesting to me. I wanted to see more. Episode 2 turned me off almost immediately because they were trying to build characters and trying to kind of get a story underway, and every 5 seconds there would be a thing where a character turns chibi, or a thought bubble pops up.
That stuff was in the first episode.
Or they all fall...
have, like, chibi stuff?
Yeah, and they all fall down when someone says something... All those anime tropes.
Jeez, I didn't even know they went that far with it, because that stuff wasn't in the first episode.
Yes.
That's weird, because that doesn't even... Like, obviously I haven't seen them, but in my head... thinking about the art style, like, that would not play in 3D animation at all.
No, it doesn't. And so there's a lot of that where it's just, they are so constantly just doing those stylistic ticks without any narrative, thematic, stylistic heft to them. And so
even understanding how and why those things work in the original format anyways. Because, like, that style would not translate to 3D animation at all.
No. Stuff like that. So it's just... I felt like the style, the pastiche of it, so constantly got in the way of anything they were trying to build. And there are things I like. I think as you go along, RWBY becomes... I think she's an interesting protagonist to the level of I find her kind of charming. I kind of like the voice of that character. If the performances are all a little wonky, that one's...
I mean,
by voice,
most of them, like, just having watched the first episode, other than, like, one character that was voiced by Shannon McCormick, I think almost all of them were Red vs. Blue employees that are not voice actors.
No, and you can tell. And anyway, and by voice I more mean kind of the spirit of the character.
Okay.
And it's the same with all of them. I think there's kind of a charm to them. I'm interested in the dynamics. Like, they're very basic dynamics. This girl's a bitch and hates RWBY, and this girl's kind of nice and likes RWBY, but she's shy. Those kind of things. The character played by Barbara is just kind of a ditz. I don't know. And then you kind of have those, and I was kind of interested. I want to see where those go, and if they can make us. And I find those characters charming. But if every 5 seconds they're gonna, fall down or turn chibi, or their eyes are gonna go big or something like that, I don't care. I just can't care about that. Because it's so much style over substance, it doesn't even begin to compare. Mm-hmm. And I think the 5 episodes, they get better. 5 was definitely the best of them so far, because things start happening in terms of characters are forced to start having relationships, friendships and stuff. They're put into teams and things. So things happen. My other big problem, though, and I think this is something that just isn't going to be fixed as long as Rooster Teeth is, the size of a company they are, is that with the style they're working in, 5 minutes per week is woefully inadequate.
That's like, I was actually going to ask you how long, because episode 1 was not 5 minutes. Like, it was 11. It was like 11, yeah. And so I was like, this is a little too short, but at least it's not like Red vs. Blue episode length, which wouldn't work at all.
Well, here's what they've been doing. So episode 1, 8, and the finale 16 are all 11 minutes.
Okay.
Is what they're doing. And then all the other ones are 2-parters with 5 minutes in length apiece.
Okay.
And I don't quite know how they distinguish the 2-parters, because they all just blend together. There's nothing like this 2-parter versus this 2-parter. They just kind of all flow into each other.
Yeah.
But definitely 5 minutes... if you're using that anime style, an anime is a 24-minute format, generally.
Yeah.
A TV anime is, and that's what they're cribbing from. And you just can't build character, you can't tell your stories.
Yeah.
It's not fit for that format. And so the 5 minutes a week, I mean, I know through episode 8, we're still on basically the first small story of the show, which is their first training mission. So very, very little has happened on the show.
So this is the part where Naruto and his friends and Kakashi, the teacher, all go to the land of the water and then they fight the ninja guy? Okay, it's that part of the show.
If this were based on a manga, I would feel we're still in like chapter 2.
I mean, that in Naruto that actually does happen like super early on.
Right. So it's just all this. It's just the story can't move fast enough. By the time we get to the end of these 16, I can't imagine anything of real substance will have happened. In terms, or maybe there will be kind of one story that happens, but even then, we're talking about 16 episodes.
Yeah, it's like because that's going to end up coming out as like 4 or 5 episodes of like a normal anime series.
Yeah,
and in 4 and 5 episodes of a normal anime show, that's when you've gotten all the main characters set up usually, and now the actual main plot really starts.
And I really do think that's one of the biggest problems because they are clearly shaping their narrative around those rules you're talking about. And if they only have 4 or 5 episodes worth of content across the 16 they're going to be airing, that's just, as I said, woefully inadequate. I just think so much of this show has its heart in the right place, but is so misguided from an executional standpoint. It's a disappointment in that way. And I also say for the animation, I almost feel bad picking on Rooster Teeth for doing
because
this.
it's something that it's such an ambitious thing to try to attempt that you have to admire the ambition in it.
And
it's too ambitious. Like, they can't possibly meet what they're trying to do.
No, the animation, I like the aesthetic. I like the design elements of it. Monty Ohm, characters in movement, he's great at. And the action,
like fight scenes are awesome.
Yeah, episode 5 is probably the best because an actual kind of action-y kind of scene happens, and it's very well executed. But other than that, it's like, when they're just moving around, it looks so awkward, and everything is so kind of, there's no texture to anything, there's no real life to anything, and then only the main characters are designed, so everyone else is just a black shadow, and that continues to all of it.
Was a little bit in episode 1.
And oh my god, that looks cheap. And it also makes it reinforce. I mean, RWBY looks very much like a video game, and that only reinforces it. It really feels like you're watching the cutscenes to a PSP game, if that. And again, I don't want to pick. I feel like I'm picking on the little guy because they are not Pixar, but
like they don't have the resources of a full production company. But it's like when you're trying to make a product that is like something that a full production company does, you need to. It does,
Maybe this isn't the right route to go down. I don't know. It's troublesome that way, I think. And then there's the voice acting, which is just. I think Lindsay Tuggy is doing RWBY, and I think
doing RWBY,
and that is the most successful performance to me of the main characters, and I think she gets better as it goes along, and I think that voice fits, even if the actual performance quality is not always 100%, because she's not a professional actress.
Yeah.
But she acquits herself well. Other than that, Barbara's line readings are very awkward. The other 2 main girls, I think they are variably successful. And then all the other characters, like Miles is kind of horrible in his part. He plays this boy who RWBY has a crush on. He's really awkward. And Miles has done some voice acting and some other things I've heard, and he's okay in. That's not good here. Really, the only 2 performances that feel adequate are Shannon McCormick is the principal, and Kathleen, who does Tex, is his assistant. And those are 2 professional actors. They do very good work.
Yeah.
But other than that, what I said to you after episode 1 is it sounds like it was dubbed.
Not
in a good way. If someone wanted to make RWBY in Japanese and dub it back over in Japanese, I'd watch the shit out of that. Sure, it would take out a large element of distraction for me, but even then. So,
can I say what I want to?
Of course,
It's like, man, you had a lot pent up there, dude. You had a lot to say.
I just thought, I don't want it to sound like I'm just unnecessarily picking up on the show because it does have interesting attributes, but.
Okay, so then my perspective after having watched the first episode and not particularly liking the first episode, to the point where I have not watched any of the other episodes, and really I don't want to, especially after hearing you describe, because we talked a little bit about it, but we haven't gone into detail, so you just I didn't know the other episodes were 5 minutes, that really turns me off. Anyway, so I'm just going to give my impressions after having just seen the first episode, which are a lot in line with what you've said, is that RWBY to me. Yes, the ambition is admirable. There are some interesting parts to it, but I think it's so misguided in so many ways, especially as me personally, someone who has watched a lot of anime, and especially a lot of the anime that this is very deliberately cribbing from, stuff like Soul Eater and Naruto and Bleach. It's
I can't bring myself to watch the show because my number one problem with the show is that it basically just feels like a bad anime with 3D animation made by an American production company that puts stuff out on the internet, and all those things in the worst way it could possibly be for any of those things. Like, other than, like, obviously, okay, if it was anyone other than Rooster Teeth, this project couldn't even get like anywhere close to started. Like if you're like a web-based company, Rooster Teeth, that's not like owned by a massive corporation. Rooster Teeth is like the biggest guys out there as far as like that very specific niche is concerned. So with RWBY, it's very clear to me that like they have, like, the people behind it have a lot of passion for anime and that format. But anime cannot, in my mind, you cannot have a non-Japanese anime. In the same way, there is a big argument that a lot of people have about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a Nickelodeon cartoon.
It's not a fucking anime.
It is a fantastic cartoon. I think it's great. It is as good as really good anime. Like, I'm not like saying it not being an anime makes it worse. But when you're drawing it compared, it has anime aspects to it in terms of the visual style. But an anime cannot be divorced from Japanese culture in my mind, because it's so, and that's one of the massive appeals to it for me, is being able to see this form of media being produced by a very alien culture that has its own tropes, its own genres, its own ideas about what storytelling is, about how you do 2D animation, that has all these other cultural and stylistic things tied to it, that anyone that is not like a Japanese production company simply cannot make anime, like, at all. You can't. And especially, and it's why I don't even, like, tend to ever watch anime in English dubs unless it was something I grew up with and so I'm used to it, is because the Japanese language itself is something that I'm very attracted to and attached to, and has its own appeal for an anime show. So, like, when we say that it sounds like it's dubbed, that means two things. One, it feels like you're trying to draw all these tropes from a Japanese show, but then having it be presented in English makes it automatically sort of feel dubbed in its own way, because like the storytelling style doesn't match up with how like English voice acting really works and how the English language itself works in terms of how you order objects and like direct objects and the language and stuff. It's flipped. And then also their sound quality is not, and like their ability to place sound in the environment sounds the same way that an English dub does, of where you're like, it's very clear. And, like, this obviously is not the situation for Rooster Teeth, but like with the English dub, usually it's very clear this is not recorded in the same way and in the same place that the voices were supposed to be recorded, and all like the other natural sound from the show comes from. So in RWBY, it very much has that effect of like the voices feel out of place. It's like the voice acting in some parts may be good, or in other parts is not so good. But either way, it never feels like to me, or didn't feel like to me, that it was ever coming from the characters speaking. Even if their mouths were moving, it was not, the voices were not placed into the environment properly to me.
Yeah.
So, like, that's all, like, it's a huge problem with the show. I think that's just, like, it's misguided from the get-go, and just how much it tries to go for anime cliche. Of that, to the point where watching the first episode, which was 11 minutes long, is that you can see how detrimental it is of trying to cram in 24 minutes of what would a normal content of the episode be into 11 minutes. Like where they end that 11 minutes, that is where the anime would normally end the episode. You just didn't get all the other important shit along the way of like developing the character and developing the universe properly that a 24-minute episode would provide. And it's something that is like, I think if you're someone who maybe has not watched a lot of anime, it wouldn't bug you, because it's like you're not used to the tropes and it may seem like new and different to you. But someone who has seen all of these fucking shows, it's like I just watch this, I'm like, okay, this is the part where, okay, they go to the school, and then eventually they're going to have to make friends. There's going to be one person who's going to end up being like their enemy at first, and then eventually they're going to become his friend. It's like blah 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 blah.
And that's all accurate. That all happens.
Yeah, of course it does. Like I've literally only seen the first episode. It's like I fucking didn't even need to know that there was going to be an older sister character in there. Fucking Barbara's character walks on screen and is like, oh hey big sis. And they even do the fucking they even do the English dub thing of like in the Japanese language. If you have an older sibling, you almost always would address them as One-chan if they were a sister, or like give them like their name and then like One or something after it, because it's like that is a very important part of Japanese culture, is to pay respect to someone older than you, especially if they're your family member. But that makes these really awkward situations where in English dubs, you, like, address these characters like Big Sis or something, when English people don't ever fucking talk like that. So they even copy that aspect of it, where it's like, this is not Japanese. It was not made in the Japanese language. It was not made in Japan. It was not made by Japanese people. So you can't copy those styles, because all you're doing is copying it. Whereas for a Japanese production company, that's all coming organically from the culture in which you were born and raised. And so it's like you can't just take it on and try to do it. It's going to be inferior. You're just going to be running through tropes of these shows, and you're going to lose the appeal of why a Western audience comes to anime in the first place. So with RWBY, like, you know, the action scenes look okay. All the dialogue stuff just felt really awkward and stilted to me, because it's like the very natural movements don't feel right. And even you just talking about, they do chibi stuff and stuff like that, of like these weird little, almost kind of comic, like, visual asides that anime very often does. That works because it's anime, like that, like the specific style, and it being 2D animated, and like you can just have things transfer instantly from one frame to the next, like, you know, the thing where like something kind of dumb happens and everyone falls down, and that's like this, like, oh, what was that? Like, that's so stupid. That works because everyone falls down within a frame, and it has like a really funny sound effect to it. You can't do that in 3D animation. It looks fucking stupid.
No, and that's true of RWBY. I agree with absolutely everything you're saying 100%, and I think, couldn't have said it better myself, you've seen more of these kinds of shows than I have. Kind of frustrates me they put the show on Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
Stop
me too.
encouraging them.
I was just looking at it, it's like, like this, I don't know, like that feels really weird to me that you put that on Crunchyroll.
As I said,
that streams like subtitled anime that is like currently airing and stuff.
It's like, as I said before, Crunchyroll, don't encourage them.
Yeah,
you're encouraging bad habits, and it is the number 3 most popular show on that service.
That just seems weird to, like, I don't know, like, how that got that much of an audience, like, over there. Like, I wonder if, like, some Rooster Teeth people watch it on there or something. Like,
that's how I would watch it, just to get it on my TV. But I got a Crunchyroll free trial. I'm trying that service out. But
yeah, I don't know.
What real anime should I watch now that I have Crunchyroll?
On Crunchyroll, like, I was thinking, like, this actually might also be on Crunchyroll, but I watched it on Hulu. Soul Eater is, like, very. Like, this is very... It sucked because I finished watching Soul Eater right when RWBY started, and Soul Eater is very, very... It is the same, like, we are these, like, high school kids in, like, this sort of fantasy universe, all going to this high school to train our special abilities to fight fantasy monsters. Like, you know, it is exactly that, only Soul Eater is fucking awesome.
It's like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Yeah, only... No. Yeah, no. There's no... We don't go to, like, Slifer Hall, like, weird, like... It was fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was ripping off goddamn Harry Potter, of all things. Like, with its whole, like, we've got Slifer House, and... Yeah, no. Fuck you. Yeah, no. Soul Eater is really awesome. I mean, like, it's a very different show, but Attack on Titan is something that's currently airing. That it has some problems. Once you get, like, 8 episodes in, like, some of the pacing gets a little rough, but it's picking up now again. Attack on Titan's a fucking awesome show, especially the beginning. I definitely watched that.
I know you've also talked about Angel Beats and
yeah. I mean, that's a completely different genre, but
yeah,
Angel Beats is really good.
And,
like, obviously, like, if you want to watch a show like this, but that's actually good, Naruto. Like, it's you know, it's
there's 600 episodes. But
yeah, exactly. Like, you can start watching Naruto and you can never stop if you didn't want to. Like, I still have, like, I'm fucking backed up on like 50 episodes at this point since the last time I watched that. But yeah, like, no, like. Naruto and Soul Eater were the two things very specifically that this reminded me of. But if, like, you wanted to watch shonen, like, you could watch a fucking Bleach also. Like, great show. There's no end to really awesome anime in this genre.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest problem for, like, the reason why I just can't watch any more RWBY is, like, I was watching it and I was like, I could watch this, but it would be a lot better if it was just, like, I picked a different show.
Right.
And so
there's only so much time in the day.
Exactly. Like, and especially now that school started, like, all of a sudden, like, time pressure is back on me of, like, fuck, I only have so much time to do the things that I want to do. So, like, I can't waste, like, okay, I mean, it's only 5 minutes episodes. Maybe I could, but I don't want to waste, like, because now it would be, like, 20 or 30 minutes to catch up. So now I really don't want to bother with it. So
anyway, that's our reasons for that.
RWBY.
Maybe we'll talk about some real anime next week, because I'm getting the Blu-ray in from Japan of Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, the new Dragon Ball Z movie. importing that shit.
Yeah, it's super topical. Let's do an American podcast talking about an import of the Dragon Ball Z movie.
We've done less topical stuff.
That is true, but I'd like to think that we can get away from doing less topical stuff.
Okay, we shouldn't go deeper in all that.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't try to find the most specific, just niche.
I could go more niche. You want to go more niche? I'll go.
I could go so fucking niche you wouldn't even know what we were talking about anymore. I could spend hours talking about a scene from fucking Godzilla against Mechagodzilla if I wanted to, motherfucker. Let's go. You want to go niche? I can go niche. But we shouldn't fucking go niche.
Right.
Let's do a whole podcast on the second level of Halo. Let's do that, We can go super niche. A whole podcast on the mechanisms of the assault rifle in Halo 1 if we wanted to.
All right. Instead of that, let's transition into our final topic of this week's episode.
I forgot. Yeah, we have
which
something
is
cool to talk about.
Hotline Miami.
Yeah.
So this was a game that came out last year on the PC.
Yep. That's how I played it on the PC.
Yeah, it's now on Macs and Linux too on Steam. And it recently came out on the PS3 and Vita. It's one of those cross-platform games, so buy it on one, you get it on both. Yeah. It does cross-saving and everything. You can switch back and forth. I'll have specific things to say about that version as we go along. You've played the PC.
Yeah.
I've played the Vita version. But Sean, I'm going to plug in this computer so it doesn't run out of power.
All right, that's
like a good idea. While I'm doing that, tell the kids about Hotline Miami.
Okay, yeah. So Hotline Miami, as we said, it's an indie game that came out last year on the PC, and it is... One, it's a really fucking awesome game, and it is also an unbelievably brutally violent and tense. It almost doesn't even fit into a genre. It sort of has a retro vibe to it, but it's very much a very tense action game where you get hit once by a bullet or somebody punching you in the face or whatever, you are dead immediately. And basically, if you hit anyone with a weapon, they are killed immediately. If you hit them with your fist, then you have to execute them when they're on the ground. And so, since you can be killed so quickly and you kill enemies so quickly, the game is super fast paced. You will die in the level over and over and over again, trying to figure out the right way to approach a certain situation. And in that way, it's almost kind of like a very tense, precision based puzzle game of you trying to. Your ability to solve the puzzles is very much related to your skill and how you play the game, but it's also down to trying to figure out creative ways to approach certain rooms and certain situations of there are two dudes with guns over there, but they're in this 2 rooms away, and there's one guy in this room patrolling around. So if I run through and knock him down by opening the door, right when he's in front of the door, I can take him down, execute him while he's on the ground without alerting the guys in the other room, and then I can run through the room really quick and slash him with my knives. And so it's super fast-paced, incredibly brutal, just blood everywhere, and it's got this really great sort of super grungy sort of 70s, 80s aesthetic of sort of these really bright neon colors around the edge of the screen that sort of pulsate, and the screen sort of sways back and forth, and you're playing some sort of coked up crazy fucking hitman dude who gets just gets orders by people and rabbit and frog masks and bullshit, and you just go out and kill motherfuckers, and the soundtrack is just pumping and sort of techno and awesome.
And I'll say stylistically, it was partially inspired by the 2011 film Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn.
And then obviously the 70s films that film was also inspired by.
I understand it's the most recent thing that people have probably seen, and there's specific references to it in the game. You see the jacket on the ground from that movie and stuff. And obviously other references. But if you've seen Drive, which was fairly recent, so I'm sure a lot of people have, the music style is almost identical between the two, so it's very much like that. In fact, when I started playing it, I felt like I was playing Drive, the video game. Drive's also very brutal and whatnot. It's not surreal in the way this game is, but yeah. So what else should we say about just general style of Hotline Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more or less it. It's you just move through rooms and kill everybody.
Top-down 2D.
Yeah, it's top-down 2D.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what Hotline Miami is, and it's awesome.
I think it's a great game.
It's a really fucking good game.
I was kind of on edge about whether or not to get this and play it because I'd heard a lot of good things about it, but looking at it, I wasn't sure what to make of it.
Yeah.
And when you start playing it, you're not sure what to make of it. But then, I don't know.
Especially the story aspect.
The story is crazy. But you play that those first couple rooms, and it is so... Immediately, it's so difficult, and it's so frustrating. Yeah. And there are some rooms near the end I probably tried 100 times.
Yeah,
and it's so... But then it's so addictive. And at first you're also so horrified by the things you're doing. Like, this game, better than any 3D game, simulates that Hitman kind of thing of going into a room and just beating someone to death.
Yeah, like just fucking killing everyone, and there's just like arterial spray on the walls and shit.
The brutality of it is so tough, and then you go through the rooms and you're done, and you have to come back through your carnage. I love that little touch.
Yeah, you have to walk out back to your car, and there's just all these bodies strewn everywhere, and it's like, I just stepped on that dude's brain because I fucking broke his head open with a baseball bat.
And yet it's so addictive, and you just can't stop until you've killed everyone. And I don't know if you had this effect, but I had the effect of the more I played a level, the more violent I got. Because it was like...
Yeah, I kind of had... Because, like, especially some of the later levels, you could just get, like, really frustrating. I'm like, motherfuckers, like, you fucking cunts, I'm gonna just slaughter your asses.
So, we talk a lot about ludonarrative dissonance, and the most impressive thing about Hotline Miami to me is that at a certain point, you are very much in the main character's mindset, where you lose it. You go crazy. You're just murdering people. You're just, I have to punch this person, and I have to open the door on this guy and stab these 3 people while they chase me and break this dog's neck. And then
fuck the dogs. Fuck those things.
And then you calm down and you're like, what have I done? Oh God, I need to take a shower just from playing this game.
Yeah, they fucking deserved it. Fucking assholes. Jesus. They're all like horrible, like drug dealing, murderous psychopaths too. It's like we're just lowering the crime rate like one by one. Like we're just like, it's better to have all the criminals, like, murder psychopaths murdering each other than having them murder, like, random civilians on the streets. I'm encouraging psychopath on psychopath violence.
Sure.
It's not a pretty thing, but maybe it's a necessary thing.
Yes. Just as Batman would tell us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the hero we need, not the one we deserve, whatever bullshit Dark Knight says.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's kind of Hotline Miami in a nutshell to me of why I liked it so much. And I was really into this game when I was playing it. And definitely I liked playing it on the Vita, and we'll talk about specific control stuff later for that. But it's a great portable game, because you can pick up and play it. And although sometimes I would be working on one level for an hour and a half, there was definitely one time where I had a break between classes that was like 2 hours, and I went to the library, and I was intending to do some studying, but first I had my Vita, and I was going to play some Hotline Miami. I spent that entire 2-hour break playing Hotline Miami. Yeah, and it was a good 2-hour break.
To me too. I mean, with me in Hotline Miami, like when I was younger, I would get kind of like angry and frustrated at video games. But like as I've gotten older, like that just doesn't really happen to me anymore. Whereas you, like if you play a match of Halo and get killed, like you'll fucking throw the controller on the floor.
I have never done anything like that in a Halo game.
Dude, that is fucking empirically false. I have seen you do that multiple times of like finishing a Halo game or like in the middle of a Halo game, you just being like, oh fuck shit, and like throw the controller on the ground.
I'm trying to control my image, Sean.
It's like, well, control your image when there isn't someone present who has seen it with their own fucking eyes multiple times, okay?
I've technically only broken a controller once, and it was during The Last of Us.
Yeah, I didn't see you actually break a controller. I played with the controller you broke.
Yeah, because then I brought the PS3 back up and gave Sean the broken controller.
Even though you bought a non-broken controller, and you were gone in fucking Canada, see, it's not like you could have played a PS3 anyway, so I don't know why you gave me the broken fucking controller, you dick.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah. But anyways, what I was going to say is that I, like, traditionally, as I've gotten older, like, I haven't really had an experience where I got really, like, angry at a video game to the point where I'll just be like, oh, fuck the god motherfucker, you know, like, I don't do that anymore. I did that with Hotline Miami, definitely on some levels of just, like, so, like, in my mind, picturing myself, especially some of the later levels, playing, like, in public with the Vita, see, just, like, really awkward situations of, like, oh, this fucking, fuck you, fucking bullshit, and just, like, looking around, it's like, oh, I'm not, yeah, okay, everyone would be looking at you like you're a maniac, and you're about to go like, and maybe that's like what the game, like playing on the Vita. It's a very good like breaking down ludonarrative dissonance is like if that happens to you enough in public, then you just start fucking killing people with baseball bats because it's like you can't take the social pressure and like everyone realizing you're a psychopath makes you a psychopath.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah.
So. But I want to ask you this just while we're on the topic of the different platforms we played it on. What are the controls like on the original PC version?
Like music, movement is WASD, and I've like cursor with the mouse, and then you can use like shift or something to like move the like distance you can see on the screen to like examine the other rooms. Then there's like I think right click is like lock on. So to me it controlled perfectly well. Like I didn't have any issue with it.
Okay. just as a report, because I'm sure some people who played the PC version might be interested to hear.
Yeah, like I'm
this.
curious about particularly how it plays on the Vita.
Between the PS3 and Vita versions, the Vita is where you should play it because for one, it looks better on the Vita. Blowing that game up to a 40-inch TV, which is what I have, it doesn't look great anymore. And it's I feel like it's a really bright, colorful, well-designed game, and I can appreciate it more on the Vita screen. So there's one marked for it. But also, I think the controls on both can be clunky. I definitely got killed a lot from control malfunctions.
I mean, that happened on the PC too, but maybe not as much.
Mainly just with aiming and locking onto people.
Yeah, no, like that definitely still happens. Okay. Just because like the game is so fast-paced that it's like sometimes like you wish you could like almost slow down time because it's like there's not enough time to be able to manipulate the controls in the way you want to.
Yeah. So, but on the PS3, the benefit the Vita has is the touchscreen, which they make really good use of.
I didn't even think about that.
So the PS3, how you play it is lock on is the square, and that's how you lock on to people, and that's your only option on the PS3 version. You use left L1 L1 to throw or pick up weapons.
Okay.
R1 to use the weapon or your fist or something. You walk around with the control sticks, obviously. You use X to like bash people's heads in, things like that. So pretty basic controls, and then R2 and L2. I forget what L2 does. I know L2 with R3, like the right thumbstick, will let you look around further, like what you're talking about. Now, what the Vita does to simplify all that works really well is the controls are all the same, except there's obviously not L2, R2.
Yeah.
So what you do is to look around, you just pull on the screen.
Yeah.
And it works great. On the PS3, I always forgot what the control was to look around, and obviously that's crucial to playing Hotline Miami.
Yeah, definitely. Even because you need to know who the fuck is in the next, like, the rooms adjacent to the room you're going into.
And so it's
you're going to die.
It's clunky on the PS3 to do it that way. On the Vita, though, it's really nice to just drag it. And then you can also lock onto targets just by touching them on the Vita screen. And that works really well, too. That feels more like, you have a cursor or something on a PC interface. You can just select someone rather than the auto-aim, which is what the square button does. And the Vita also has auto-aim via the square button. And usually that's what I would use, but sometimes if there's multiple enemies, it's really clunky. I would get killed a lot using that.
Yeah.
The PS3 version, there were honestly some levels that I just couldn't beat that way, and I would play it on the Vita, and I'd have a little bit of an upper hand being able to select on the screen. So the Vita has better controls for the game. I also feel like having the like screen right there where your controls are, given the pace of the game, makes it a little, and having fewer buttons to access makes it all easier.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I definitely like playing it on the Vita. I also, now that it's finished, I like just going back and replaying chapters just for fun while I'm just waiting for a class or something. It's a great little indie game for that purpose. But yeah, so that's how it controls. Like I said, either way you play it, PS3 or Vita, it's still a great experience.
Yeah.
You could totally play it on the PS3. But
and as far as like PC goes, like it will run on basically like anything.
Yeah,
it's not a graphically intensive game, so it's like if you wanted to wait for like a Steam sale to pick it up and like want to be able to play it on the PC, like that's how I would go about getting the game probably.
Yeah,
like although I might honestly consider picking it up on the Vita just because that would be because one I've kind of wanted to replay that game recently, just like it's so fucking addictive and fun that like it'd also be like I can see that. Having the portability of it, just being like, I'll just.
And I think on the Vita,
fucking kill some motherfucking dogs in Hotline Miami. Those motherfucking dogs, goddamn it.
And on PlayStation, I actually think that it's a great deal. It's $9.99. You get both the PS3 and Vita versions. Yeah. It's great. The only difficulty I had was with save syncing. The PS3 would not pick up my synced saves all the time from the Vita, and I think it might be because my Vita has had a spotty Wi-Fi signal with my house, so I don't know if the Vita was uploading when it should have. I got that corrected near the end of the game, and it was okay. But mostly I played it on my Vita, and that was fine. But there were some times where I wanted to just play it on my PS3. Like, I finished a Mass Effect section. I'd be like, I want to play something else. Boot up Hotline Miami from the dashboard. Oh, it hasn't synced. Shit. So, I don't want to play 3 levels over again, because those 3 levels gave me PTSD.
Yeah.
But, yeah. In terms of, like, the game design and everything, do you want to talk about the story or anything, or how it unfolds?
This has been, like, a year since I played it, so I don't remember a lot, like, specific. I mean, I just remember, like, the story is fucking
crazy.
Yeah, like I feel like you end up like it actually does some interesting stuff where you like switch the main character at one point near the end of the game.
Yeah, what happens is the first big boss is this biker dude. You kill him, and then later in the game it returns to that. The biker dude is also getting the phone calls. He kills you this time, and then he goes off and has a separate ending. Yeah,
and then like you like run into like the programmers of the game or something like living in a house. It's like what
it's
the
very
fuck is going on?
I mean, the game basically is a very, very meta commentary on video game violence.
Yeah.
Like, very, like, yeah. It's,
very nihilistic kind of, we do it because we're bored.
Yeah, and the story's just, like, super surreal. Like I said, like, you're getting, like the fucking tutorial is you're, like, in this back alley, and there's, like, some hobo, and you, like, kill a dude, and then all of a sudden you're in, like, a really grungy apartment, and there are, like, 3 guys, like, a guy with, like, a, like, rooster mask, and, like the other guys have, like, different masks.
The owl mask and the toad.
like, the owl mask. And they're just, like, tell you, like, all the shit, and then you get a phone call that's, like, just, like, here's this apartment, and then you go to the apartment and kill everybody in the apartment, and then you go get pizza, and it's like the dude who gives you pizza is the same dude at like the VHS rental store. It's like
he always gives you free stuff, and that's never explained.
It's
ever.
like, what the fuck is going on? And then it's like at some point, all the people about town just are like have melted faces or something. It's like, what? Like I think the one major part of the game I remember really disliking is like kind of near the end when you're still playing as the first dude. You end up like going to the hospital, and it has like that stealth sequence.
Yeah, it's not great. And
it's like the game really like all of a sudden like trying to change its pacing, but like not having a good other thing to do in the game. So it's like that hospital sequence is the exact opposite of what the game did well, and so it's just like really plotting and frustrating.
I think that I also don't like either of the 2 big boss fights against the biker or the final
boss. They're
boss.
Not great.
I think they're way too oblique. They don't give you any indication of what to do, and then actually executing it is like 70% luck. Whether this instance will actually work, like if the dog will be, if the cheetah or whatever it is will be open to you beating it.
Right. Yeah.
Like those pumas, I think they're pumas is what they are. Like, fuck, they're 1 out of 10 you can even get near them. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the player. Yeah. And it's just stuff like that. I don't like those. Really, the game's strengths are just in its normal level construction.
And I also don't love when you switch the main character, like whether he has like a cleaver or something, but you can't pick up other weapons, so it like really restricts your ability to throw weapons and stuff like that, or use guns, and that's really... Especially because you're at the end of the game, it's like, why are you taking my ability to play this game away from me? Like, that, I think they make some poor decisions in how they structure the game in like those very specific instances, but for the most part, when the game's just like how it normally is, it's fucking phenomenal.
How long a game was it for you? I've heard a lot of people say 3 hours, and I think it was much longer for me.
Yeah, it was definitely longer than 3 hours for me. I don't know. Like, I would have to look at my Steam. Even then, probably my Steam thing would be totally inaccurate, because I remember when I played it, I went home for that weekend or something, and I remember like I played it like on a weekend or something, and so like I probably had the Hotline Miami game just open on my computer like for 2 days straight. Yeah. So I probably have like 50 hours played in that game. So it's 50 hours long.
Okay. Yeah. $9.99, great deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like a goddamn JRPG in length. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, but it's a really darn good game. I'm excited for Hotline Miami 2 to get more content.
Yeah, they've recently announced Hotline Miami 2. So
and that'll be a PS4 Vita game, so that'll be pretty great. So if they could rework the controls a little bit for the PS4 version of that on Hotline Miami 2, make it a little more console friendly, that'd be good. Vita, I have really no complaints. I think it's as good as it could be for a non-PC platform on the Vita. Now we just need the 3DS version.
Yeah, but you talking about like the PS4 controls, like all of a sudden it made me think of like, because they have the touchpad on there. Yeah. And it's like, I just had this weird flashback to in God of War 3. At the beginning of God of War 3, you kill Poseidon. How you kill Poseidon is you have like a quick time event, and you like fucking stick your thumb in his eyes, and to do that, the quick time event thing is press in on both the triggers.
That's great.
But then it made me think about in Hotline Miami, that's one of the ways when there's a guy on the ground who's not dead, you execute him by like just sticking your thumbs in his eye sockets. It's like, what if you did that on the fucking touchpad? It's even better. It's even better than clicking in the thumbsticks if you reach up on the touchpad and just like, motherfucker. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully they put that in the PS4 version.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, then you just all you have to do is like put some squibs like inside your PS4 controller, so when you press it really hard on the touchscreen, like all like fake blood starts shooting out. And then you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who says video games are too violent? It's not violent enough as far as I'm concerned. We need more. Like, fucking, like, ramp it up, motherfuckers.
Yep. Hotline Miami is definitely violent.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
Pretty disturbing at times what you have to do. And those dogs can fuck you up.
Fuck those dogs. God damn it.
There's a mask that
dog
makes the dogs
in
ignore
video
you.
What are so fucking annoying.
I like the mask that allows the dogs to ignore you, because you can just walk up to the dog without it doing anything and beat it to death. It's great. Yeah. What masks did you favor when you played it?
Probably actually the dog one when I got it, but I don't remember specifically. Like, probably like, I think there was one that let you start out with a knife.
Yeah,
I think I picked that one a lot. That's like a later game one.
I mainly use Tony, which is the tiger one, who just is one punch kills, because that a lot of times that really saved your ass, but it also gets you lower points. So when I play through the game again, I might do something else to get my points up or something. But
then also that way you don't get to like execute people when they're on the ground. That's like half the fun.
Yeah, no,
that's where all the really violent shit happens.
But sometimes a level will start you where there's like 5 guys with guns right there. Sometimes you just need to get them all down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of like experimenting with all the masks and stuff. It's kind of fun, but it's a good game.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it if this sounds like a game you're interested in.
And I am on kind of an indie game kick. I got a bunch of stuff. PSN recently had a sale. I got Journey for $3. I got Tokyo Jungle for $3. I got Limbo. I got some other ones. I'm excited to play all of these. So,
did you get Thomas Was Alone?
That was not on there.
Okay.
But I will play
that's a very good indie game. It's like a puzzle platformer, but it's got like a really nice sort of story component in it through like narration.
Nice. I have a whole digital stack of indie games I have to get through, but and my brother and I actually played a bunch of Tokyo Jungle co-op, significantly harder than Tokyo Jungle single player. Huh. There are less animals on screen, but you need more of them.
Oh, yeah. That'd be... Like, if one of the animals dies, like if one of you guys
revive the other one,
but so if one of them dies, like you could like, so if Thomas died, like you could keep on playing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I was just like, can you eat him?
No. Which is too bad. That would have been great.
Yeah, it was just like because I was just like picture like playing like with both of you as like Pomeranians, and at some point it's like, oh god, like everything, we can't find any animals. And like Thomas is like, hey Thomas, go over there, like see if there's anything over there. He's like, okay, and then you just like walk up behind him, just like, Gah! And then eat him. Like, what the fuck is like, killer, be killed, motherfucker.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like Tokyo Jungle's multiplayer also, like when we're both Pomeranians, there's this, there's the age system and the mating.
Yeah.
And so there are enough mates for everyone, but not enough nests. So like there will still be just the one nest in the area. So you go there, you mate, and then the other person has to just wait until you find the next nest. And so eventually we would just die of old age because there's just not enough of them.
Yeah.
And then like there weren't enough animals, so we would die of hunger. Then the poison would come and we couldn't get away fast enough. It was.
I mean, Tokyo Jungle's a hard fucking game, anyways. But yeah,
it was tough. So, but it's kind of fun. If you're gonna play Tokyo Jungle co-op, just go in knowing you're gonna fuck up terribly, and then you'll have some fun with it.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think that's it for this podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of fucking things.
I'm gonna go home and play Mass Effect 3 because that game is fantastic.
I'm gonna play some Final Fantasy 4.
I'm going to play maybe some of that too.
Yeah.
On my way home. I got to drive home. Maybe I can kind of play it on the side while I'm driving.
I think that's a good, that's like, especially because it's been raining recently, so it's like, that's like with the slick roads, just like, going down the highway, playing some Vita while you're driving. I think that's a great idea.
And it's a highway with like the 30-foot drops off the side with no guardrails.
But I think instead of playing Final Fantasy 4, you should play Hotline Miami while you're driving.
Drive with my knee, steer with my knee, and just play Hotline.
Or even better, like load up a fucking racing game and try to play a racing game while you're driving. Like you fucking start turning like right in the game. You're like, oh fuck, and start turning right in real life, even though it turns left, and then you kill 5 people, and then we can't do the podcast anymore. And that just frees up a lot of time for me. So sure,
you could come to the prison where I would be, and we could record it like through the weird glass that people. Yeah. All right.
Anyways, we're done. Podcast is over. Something will happen next week.
GTA 5?
Well, that will happen next week, tomorrow.
I should say, next week's podcast will probably go up late Monday night, early Tuesday. We will obviously not have played any GTA 5.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to, I want to spend a lot of time playing GTA 5, so I would not want to do a podcast while I was in the process of playing GTA 5. So.
2 weeks from now, we will talk about it. Yeah. If we're not completely done with it, we'll still give impressions.
Yeah, definitely.
Eventually, there will be a full review episode on that, obviously. But it's a big game, I assume.
Yes.
Or it could disappoint. It's like a 5-hour campaign.
Yeah.
1.5 hours for each of the 3 characters.
Yep.
So, all right. See you guys later. Sean just waved by.
Yes, I did.